what I've done with these, this is the third one of these. I started off in the last couple just by, you know, talking about a particular theme, and then we just take it out and talk about whatever. And then last week, people just wanted to talk about whatever anyway. I either came up with a really dull topic or people just wanted to talk about whatever. So we'll just go with that. I mean, I can start rambling on until someone sort of throws something in there. Oh, hiya. Oh, you're another one who uses different names. Yeah, so I'm trying now to use the same name for everything, just Thete Gaming. I'll also be probably now streaming. I'm sort of putting my foot down a little bit and wanting to actually play some games a little bit more. Like, I've noticed that, like, at Christmas I started playing a bit more Elder Scrolls Online. And I noticed that I keep going back just long enough to spend my crowns in the store. So I've bought 2 houses, one of which is a desert island. Quite like that one. But I've not actually been playing the game. So I'm going to, you know, on either Saturday or Sunday afternoon start playing it. And then I'm just going to... so I'll probably start streaming some gameplay there. But I can't remember now. I don't know how to do anything. I just changed my username, I think, in settings. I think it was as simple as that. I just changed my username. That was all there was to it. If it was any more complicated than that, I wouldn't have managed it. I am trying at the moment to change my Twitter thing as well, so that would be the same. Now, that won't be a case of changing the username, because that particular Twitter is like my personal one. So I've got followers on that are nothing to do with World of Warcraft or anything like that. So what I'm going to be doing is creating a specific World of Warcraft Twitter as well. However, to do this, of course, you need an extra email address. Now, I have 2 email addresses. I don't really fancy making a third that I will then forget about just to do Twitter. So I surprised myself by finding out I had two Twitter accounts. Then I found out I'd made one many years ago and never used it. So I've deactivated that, thinking I can now use the email address. It's not having it, because it tells you you're allowed to sort of reactivate your account after, you know, for a certain amount of time. So I'm guessing I have to wait for that period of time to come. So, oh, thank you very much. Yeah, the Pally videos. Yes, I mean, this is just a general free-for-all. We'll talk about things not RET-related as such. However, there are a couple of RET-related things, one of which I am going to have to do another Essentials Guide for 7.2.5. And... yeah, I'm off work in about a week and a half, so I think that week is going to be spent trying to do it, knowing full well that the patch isn't coming out then. It's going to come out a couple of weeks after it. So I also have to do it in such a way that I can make the last minute changes that Blizzard will inevitably make just before they release the patch as well. Because the really bad thing about doing video guides, it's not easy to update them. If you say something and then Blizzard go the next day, do you know what? The opposite of what you said is now true. That's messy. So, but yeah, I've only got 2 minutes. I can't be doing more email addresses. I should, I suppose, just have a third email address as a decoy, shouldn't I? To put on, like, when I sign up or register for different companies, so they can go and flog that to whoever, and I just get all the junk mail on that. But yeah, 7.2.5, on the face of it, not a lot is going to change, but inevitably it will, apart from new set bonuses and new trinkets. It does sound like there'll be a few things that will need redoing in it, so yeah. Why have Blizzard let 95% of the gaming world or zones become redundant? Well, this is the thing, you see. I mean, this is a really good point. This is something Elder Scrolls Online does really, really well. And it's down to the scaling thing. If they were to expand, I think they've taken a step in the right direction with Legion. If they were to expand the scaling to others earlier zones, then that would solve a lot of problems. Now, let's say they'd have done this for Legion. Obviously, the problem with this is it's a Cataclysm scale reworking of older stuff. And what you don't want them to do is to spend resources on that. And I'm sure what they don't want to do as well. And you lose something from the level cap experience for whatever expansion they decide to do that on. But the downside is you can't obviously have, when you've got new zones for an expansion, people leveling up in older ones. So I think, let's say it had come for Legion, what I'd have done is this. You can level from 1 to 100 in any of the previous expansion zones, wherever you want, just do what you want. And there's loads of advantages to that. First of all, you can flit around as you like. Second of all, if you get a quest line that you're really enjoying, you don't have to get to that point where it's starting to get green quality, especially with heirlooms, and you're thinking, well, it's not really worth doing it, but I really like it. You just keep doing it. It's giving you the right amount of experience. All the way to 100, and then to get from 100 you have to do, or the amount of experience dips massively, so you effectively have to do the new zones. That sort of thing would work. So let's say the next expansion, they did it in the next expansion, but they've given no sign they're going to, was say 110 to 120. It's getting too much this level. It's doing my head. I wish that, as well as a number squish, I wish they would do a level squish, because I think for a new player, I don't know if anyone sort of knows any new players or is a new player. What you think of starting a game and going, I've got to get to level 110, and everyone knows in an MMO the leveling is just like the advanced tutorial. Really, the game doesn't start until you get level cap. But anyway, so yeah, so you can level up to 110 in any zone, and then go to the new ones for the stuff after that. I would just do that, and that would solve so many problems. I would also revert all the changes from Cataclysm, because that was a nightmare, but they won't do that because they had to do some changes just to get flying into it. Try to do 1 to 100 in Oldham. Oh, the Harrison Jones quest lines. I didn't do a lot of that. The thing with Cataclysm is I was taking... I stopped playing after the second abomination, no pun intended, of Naxxramas, so tier 7. So I missed most of the rest of that. I sort of came back on a casual basis, but just to play with friends. It was a scrub guild. And even then, that was just for a bit till my computer exploded and I didn't bother to replace it, because I'd just got a new job. I was quite busy. And then I didn't come back until late Cataclysm. So my leveling, I leveled through Val'sharah. I did most of... No, what am I talking about? That's Legion. Vashir. I leveled through that. I did very little in Oldham, actually, apart from the just basic ones. But I mean, yeah, you could choose the zone as long as you've got some means of getting to the zones. You could choose whichever ones you wanted to do. But the downside is, I don't think it's a simple case. I mean, the scaling itself, I don't know how many resources that would take. I know nothing about it. But then they might have to tweak certain things to allow you to get to certain... I'm not suggesting that you should be allowed at level 5 to go to Outland or something. But, by the time you can get to Blasted Lands, you should be able to go through the portal and so on. So, oh yeah. But yeah, I mean, I would do that, because Elder Scrolls Online, I'd say, is really good, because you can just go wherever. And the other thing is, they keep introducing... Because there is no, increase in level cap. The game has been out for a few years now, hasn't it? A good 3 years, something like that. Or getting close to it. I think it came out around about summer, I seem to remember. And what they do is they don't increase the level cap as such. They have these champions points, which is like artifact points, I suppose. And they just increase the cap on that. But then they keep introducing new zones, and it's like you talk to this guy and go to that zone and do that zone storylines. Or do you know what? You can just do the other ones as well. So what I'd say, even Blizzard have acknowledged that leveling to 100 is a waste of time, essentially. They give you a level boost when you buy the expansion, don't they? And you can buy other ones. The problem is, though, the annoying thing for me with Cataclysm, I've said this several times before, is they did two things. They've reworked all of the level 1 to 60 content, not just to make it suitable for flying, but completely reworked all the quests, which I wasn't happy about when I found out about it, which was not when it released, because I wasn't playing at the time. I was playing like Lord of the Rings Online and Warhammer Online. But I liked a lot of those quests. I liked Duskwood. I loved Stitchers. I loved the Morladim thing. I liked doing the Murloc stuff in South Shore and all the rest of it. I liked all that, and it just gone. See you later. But so they did that, but then they also brought in, which had been sort of coming on board since TBC really, an actual function as we'd know it now, LFD system. So did people enjoy the fruits of their labour in terms of all this new quests in 1 to 60 content? No, because anyone leveling 1 to 60 just did it in Stormwind or Orgrimmar, queuing up for a dungeon. It was a total point. Rolled a new Orc. Warrior. Never mind for the Horde. I ought to... A couple of days ago, one-shot everything on mobs were... Yeah, well, especially if you had heirlooms, then they will. Mind you, I remember in vanilla times, sometimes when you were leveling a new character, I remember on a mage, just punching things with one shot. If you were in Stormwind, when people turned in the head of Onyxia, say, and you got the Dragon Slayer buff, because it didn't really scale for your level. So you got that as a level 2 or 3 or something. You just go around, you just smack everything as a mage. The thing I liked about the pre-Kata zones was it was like, it got you exploring. When I leveled my first character as a human, so I started off in Elwyn Forest, and then sort of moved to Westfall, then moved around, and I moved to like Duskwood and Redridge Mountains, but then started going further afield. I was getting, there was a quest from an elf in Stormwind sending me across to Kalimdor, so I ended up going to like Thousand Needles for some wyvern something or other. I went to the elf place before Ashenvale. What's it called? Can't remember what it's called now. Where do you go when you go out of the tree, but before you go to Ashenvale? I can picture the zone, but it's different now. I can't remember what it's called now though. But you know, so by the time I was level 30, Darkshore, yeah, that's it. By the time I was level 30, I must have done about a dozen zones. Not completed a dozen zones, but done quests in about a dozen zones all over the place. You don't do that now. It's all, go to this hub, get a quest, usually from an idiot, like pretending to be CSI Azeroth in Westfall. Do all the quests around there, and then they'll send you to somewhere else. You do them all around there and so on. There's no real exploration. So yeah, that was incredibly annoying for me. I mean, there is such a thing as going too far the other way. I mean, when I played Age of Conan, I remember when that came out, that was too far the other way because the exploration went mad there. Because when I did that, you started off on the starter island, which was all right, that was good. And then you went out into the world, and I just quickly got lost because I just had quests taking me all over the place and didn't have a clue what I was doing. So I think, you know, a halfway house. And I think the way World of Warcraft used to be was a halfway house. You had that nice mix between sort of knowing where you could get quests and do them, but also having the option to go off miles away, which was not an efficient leveling process, but it was fun. Well, I mean, that's it. I don't know the new ones because I've never leveled up through them. I've sometimes done the odd quest. Like sometimes I've leveled a character through dungeons, because that's the other thing. I don't even queue it with the LFD. I've got 2 accounts, so I just get a top level to drag my character through the dungeons. It's quicker and more efficient than queuing up in a dungeon anyway. But then inevitably what will happen is sometimes I don't want to keep repeating the same dungeon, so I'll need to do a couple of little quests just to show me up until I can get to the next set of dungeons. That happens more once you get past about level 40-ish. So I know I've done the odd quests in the new ones and not liked them, but I don't know them. I don't really know the zones. Sometimes I'm flying over a zone for whatever reason. I'm thinking, oh, this has changed, because I remember them as they were. Because I mean, I remember my first run in Black Fathom Deeps. That was in Ashenvale, and I remember because you got a little book with the original game with a little map in it, and it was marked in the wrong place. So I was going around, it was actually Darkshore, I think, or it might have been a different place in Ashenvale, trying to find it, couldn't find it. And then some people said in general, oh, we need one more person to do Black Fathom Deeps. And I was like, I want to go there, because it was the Paladin quest, and got involved in a group there. And that was, I mean, I'd spent ages just trying to find the dungeon, and I didn't mind at all. I didn't feel that was wasting my time. It was fun. People are too impatient these days. I'm not saying we should go back to those days because people won't put up with it. You can carry yourself for quest XP. Didn't think you could get XP from mobs if you were higher level. I don't know. Hi, Halim. I'm doing well. I don't know how much experience I get. I get enough because I do. Even when I rerun the dungeon, I haven't got the quest. My character is still going up XP, so I must be getting them from something. Do I think WoW would have more, less, or about the same subs if LFD and LFR were not in the game? I don't know how many subs it's got now, but I don't think as many people would play it. I think people like that convenience aspect to it. I quite like... See, with LFD, I don't really see a good reason to get rid of it because there's enough incentive in the Mythic Plus dungeon system, which you do have to, I mean, that's much more like the old days, where you have to get a group together and you have to physically go to the dungeon, and it's a challenge. So I think they've got it right with dungeons, so I don't think the LFD is a pullback. In the same way, I understand the arguments against LFR, because it's sort of saying to people, well, now there's no need for you to do the other forms of the dungeon, because, do you know what, it's the same bosses, the same gear for more hassle. That same thing doesn't really happen in people's minds with the dungeons. You know, I've never heard anyone say, well, I've done Dark Art Thicket on Heroic, so what's the point in doing it on Mythic Plus? It's the same bosses and it's the same, you know, loot. No one really says that, you know. So they're incentivized to do the Mythic Plus in a way that, for whatever reason, they don't see the same incentives to do the higher levels of raid. But at the same time, if LFR were not in it, I don't think as many people would play. But that's just my personal opinion. I don't even know how many people do play. I don't know, out of the number of people who play, I don't even know how many people do LFR that don't do other difficulties of the dungeon, raid, sorry, either. I don't even know what proportion of people who do LFR don't do any other form of raiding. It might be high, it might be medium, I don't know. We are talking about random stuff, yes, as long as it's sort of World of Warcraft. I'm not going to talk about physics again. There are lots of people that like that sort of stuff, but they're just not as vocal in the community. There's plenty of people, I mean, this is the argument Blizzard always roll out, that the vast majority of the community says, or the player base, are not vocal. And even the ones who look at, like, you've got big slice of player base that don't do anything outside of the game, like forums or anything like that. Then you've got a lot of people who look at forums and read forums and don't respond on them. I mean, on MMO Champion, for example, I was looking at for years. It was probably years that I was looking at it before I even bothered to create an account and say anything on it. Because I was one of those people who just didn't really say anything on them. So, yeah, Legion winner, Mythic Plus dungeon system, especially for non-raid guilds, or anyone. I mean, everyone does it. Like, I limit myself. I don't want to get burnt out on it. So I do a few. Like, I've done 3 this week. And that's probably going to be it unless I go online after this and someone wants to do one. What do I think about the Retribution changes? The nerf of Divine Hammer hurts. I don't know that it does. Divine Hammer is, like, at the moment, I use the same talents on every boss in Nighthold. Well, I'll tell a lie. I suppose if I'm doing bats on Tychondrius, I'll take Consecration. But even then, now that it's on easy farm, sometimes I don't even bother to do that. I know I'm going to kill enough bats without it. So that's a bit silly. The fact that I don't even have to think about it. I take Divine Hammer for everything. I don't, like, I even take it on Botanist. I didn't on Progress. I took Blade of Wrath. Because, like, the cleaving opportunities on Mythic Botanist, a Plasma Sphere for like a nanosecond. Lashes sometimes for, again, if you don't get fixated. There's maybe, they're up for maybe a couple of seconds as well. So there's minimal cleave in that fight. But I'll still take Divine Hammer because even just a couple of... I'm not losing enough single target damage for it to hurt me and make it worthwhile me changing to Blade of Wrath. So they should sort that out. If they're going to have a situation where they want us to change talents... I mean, it doesn't sound like they wanted to in Legion because they stopped us changing them easily. But yeah, if they're going to stop us doing that... But yeah, I'm not going to go into loads of Ret stuff, by the way. I'm going to limit myself because, you know, the Rets one's a separate thing. I'll be doing another Ret one as 7.25 is imminent. I'll do it before the patch goes live, but when it's announced when it's going to go live. Let's have a look. I'm probably missing something. So let's have a look. Read here from Drisex. The only thing I find bad about the new queue system is it somewhat killed the community. Before you had to meet people and interact with them to get things done. Now you don't. But to be honest, outside of my guild, by the start of Wrath, I didn't interact much with anyone else anyway. No, I think I would probably agree with that. And in fact, it wasn't all beer and Skittles in the old days as well. Like, although it took you time to get a dungeon group together and it took you time to get over there, it didn't necessarily... Like, in theory, you would think, well, everyone's invested in it. And often this was the practice. Everyone's now invested in that group, so they're going to give it a proper go. And they'll talk to each other and discuss things. But... occasionally, just like now, you'll get someone who's, you know, who gets along to it, partway through the dungeon, then they go, oh, sorry, got to go. Or they throw a wobbly about something, loot or whatever, and leave, or something like that. So that sort of thing happened as well. I'm not saying it happened all the time, but it did happen. So, and that wasn't very much fun at all. Do I think TOS is going to be easier than Nighthold? I see no reason why it would be now. I really don't see why it would be. I mean, it'd be difficult to tell for a lot of guilds as well, because they're going to have as hard. I hope we're not going to have as hard a time over it. Bloody hell! Oh, we've had so many problems in Nighthold, just because we, roster issues. Summer is going to be a bad time for it because people go on holiday over summer. So, ooh. But I don't see why it would be easier. I don't necessarily think it'll necessarily be more complicated. There's no need for it to be that either. But I don't know anything about it. We don't do like raid testing. I might actually try and see if I can persuade some people. If that, because I noticed the Black Temple time walking's up on PTR. If it's still up at the weekend, I might try and see if I can get some people, because you need 8 people to go in there and have a look at it. But we don't do raid testing in our guild. So let's have a look at what we're talking about. I do it for AP and usually half the group is AFK. Don't know if that counts as doing the content really. Oh, wait, LFR. Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing. LFR is it's you need the tanks to do something. Or it needs at least one tank to know what they're doing. But and if they don't, then you're going to have a hard time. But then usually, if at least one tank knows what they're doing, some fights you sort of need to, I suppose, like Gul'dan. And then if that's the case, you're going to have a couple of healers that are going to do something useful. You're going to have enough DPS that are going to do something useful. So yeah, and I actually took the piss. I remember in Warlord, because I don't do much LFR now, I don't do much alt stuff. But in Warlords of Draenor, because again, 2 accounts, I used to sign up for LFR on 2 different characters, not independently, not in the same group. And so what I would do, knowing full well I wasn't going to do well on either of them, I would keep switching between them so that I was showing on the damage meters and not worrying too much if I stood in fire and died, just so that I could get 2 characters through LFR at once and do loads of alts that way. We're at 50% on Gul'dan Phase 3. We should, I mean, we've had a terrible, I mean, this is one of the things, we've had so many things kick us in the arse in Nighthold. The latest thing to kick us in the arse is that our Fury Warrior, the one who's beast in the eyes, and the parasites, has gone away on to Majorca. So we basically we had to extend this week because we knew we were only going to get Wednesday and Thursday on it. That was it, and then he's gone. And also, I mean, we technically had a raid day yesterday, but not only was he going to be absent, but also 2 other people who have crucial roles on it, but they're only absent for yesterday. So we will do our farm on Wednesday this week, and then we'll go again on Gul'dan on Thursday. But there'll be a lot of... I don't think people will really believe we can do it, even though we got really close. Like, we got really close, well into Phase 3. But the problem is and we just had too many people repeating mistakes. Like, it's really annoying. Like, I don't mind people making mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. But when you make a mistake that either wipes the raid or kills you, I do feel that you should think, right, what happened there? What do I do to make sure it doesn't happen again? It's really annoying that people will do it over and over again, and they're clearly not going through that process themselves. So our Gul'dan is stuffed as well. We got so close on that Thursday, but didn't quite. We would have definitely killed it yesterday if everyone was there. Easy. And but no. So so we may not kill it till he comes back. I'm not as pessimistic as some, but if people don't believe we can do it, then that has an effect as well. So we could well be having a really bad end. I mean, we've already had a disastrous Nighthold as it is, dropping a good 500 world ranks. Worse could be still to come. So I mean, I've almost given up trying to find a warlock now, because I'm being turned down by warlocks way behind on progress because they're so few in number. They know that they can just apply to a 10 out of 10 guild. So it's at the moment now it's almost impossible. I had a really weird one with I might have mentioned this last week because I can't remember when it happened now. I might have mentioned it last week. The Resto Shaman, who was quite a good one. Again, if he'd have been there, we might have killed it as well, because Gul'dan's one of those fights where one of the people die. Okay, they're dying to stupid shit. But it's one of those situations where really good healers can pull your fat out the fire. They can keep you alive beyond what is reasonable. and we have 2 really good healers. We have one who's learning, and we have one who's, you know, not so good. And if we had another really good one, actually maybe we could. But then they said they were going to join us and then just didn't. So they're staying with their guild that's not actually even going to get cutting edge. It's baffling. Baffling to me. So yeah, I'm tearing my hair out, literally, over recruitment. I've never known... I mean, that's what prompted me to do the series on recruitment. I have never known a period in WoW like it. Sorry, I've got to go back and try and read some comments. So, which comments do I need to read? Didn't really do dungeons, etc. Anyone outside of my guild anyway, it's definitely did make... Yeah, I think that's the case. I used to deliberately, in the old days, do dungeons outside of the guild. Partly to... I think this is what stopped me was server transfers, because it was partly a good way to actually recruit, to find people, to find talent. But now with server transfers, it's so much more open now. Oh, okay. Odin 1 tanked, even on LFR? No, I don't know how. I suppose a DPS that can tank a bit dragged one of the ads away. Was this the warrior that swapped from arms or the other one? No, the other one, the one who's much more experienced. And you know, very, very, very good Fury warrior. Who had the common sense to stop being a gnome when I joined the guild. It took him a while, but you know, he did stop. Monster Finder Mage. Oh, yeah, it is an absolute nightmare at the moment. And because we've now lost so many ranks, it's even worse. It's just terrible. I've no experience of recruiting in this low world rank. Did you ever see the group that did Spellblade and Croesus normal simultaneously? No. What? Is that a thing? I'll tell you what did happen, though. When we did Croesus, when we killed Croesus, what caused me to do it? It was the end of a raid. It was the last pull of a raid as well. And I was running off to do something. I can't remember what. Instead of just half staying out of the raid. And I ran into Spellblade. And then and then thought, oh no, I've pulled it. So at that point, I decided to bubble half. But then what she'd done is she teleported to whoever was doing the loot at Croesus. So that was a bit of a surprise for them. But yeah, well, as I say, the thing I did at Croesus means I sort of know you could get a L'Oreal there. I don't really see why you would do that. I know it's just, yeah, I don't get that. Do I kick people from the guild who play badly or give them chances? We'll give them chances, but this is the thing as well with recruitment night. If there was a sliding scale of players, we'd be okay. We would just, you know, it's like, it's not. I'm not in a situation where I'm saying these are the players we really want to get back into the top 200. So we could only recruit these. That, you know, that's not the case. We will recruit anyone who can fill a spot. The problem is there's a minimum standard. Like there are some players who just cannot do mythic stuff. They will wipe you all day and all night, either because they can't do enough damage or healing, or because they just can't do the mechanics, and they will just die every time or wipe the raid. Just a lot of people are like that. So you need someone who can actually do these mythic bosses, even at the lower end of it. But there isn't this sliding scale. You've got the people who are good enough to do that, but there's not enough of them. They're all being snapped up by other guilds, or they're just doing stupid things like trying to form their own guild. That's not going well. And then you get to a certain point, it's like, and you're looking at all these one-to-one progress, you're going to think, okay, they've got 3 or 4. I mean, we've even recruited people with just heroic experience, and some of them have actually done all right. But, you know, you're looking at people with 3 or 4 or 5, and you're thinking, we'd be a big step up, we'd be a big draw for them. But you just look at their logs, and you think, they're terrible. They can't seem to do anything. It's, you know, and I'm thinking, why are they looking for a guild? Is it because this 4 out of 10 guild has had enough of them? Or do they actually think they're good and worth a step up? What's my guild looking for now? We are looking for a very solid spot healer, like Shaman or Paladin. We're looking for a Warlock, as well as another couple of really good DPS. I do occasionally post things in Discord. I've posted a few things in the Warlock Discord, definitely, because I really want a Warlock. But Yeah. Sorry, yeah, you can't post links. Whatever that is. But yeah, that's what we're looking for, but you know. Frost DK. I don't know. Technically, we will need a DK at some point soon, because the only DK we have now is our GM. And because we kept moaning at him, but basically, because of having to keep his breath up, he would whinge about having to move out and do mechanics, like everyone would. I mean, no one likes doing that. But we said, no, you're the GM, you've got to set an example, Hijack. And but then he's going, but my breath will fall off. So he's decided to change to Hunter. Unfortunately, it's a Gnome Hunter. So I haven't played with a Blood DK in Legion, no. So yeah, so he is likely to be changing to Hunter, or that's his plan anyway at the moment, for Tomb of Sargeras. So I suppose that would leave us without a DK. So yeah, I guess for Tomb of Sargeras we probably are looking for a DK. At the moment though, I mean we had, you know, even though we're actively sort of looking for a couple of melee, potentially, only because melee, it's not a very melee unfriendly expansion really at the moment. But people are put off. I was talking to quite a good rogue last week and explained, you know, when I told him that we've got 8 people in the roster, the melee roster, he was sort of turned off by that. And I sort of said, well, you know, ultimately it's a matter of competing. We don't like rotate. It's not Buggin's turn. You know, the best people will be taken. And I thought his numbers stood up very well. But he didn't fancy his chances. So we'll have to do that. We've got a new ret now. I have a ret playmate now. I mean, in a guild with another ret at the moment. You got gnomed. I hope you used my macro and alert, because that's what they tried doing it with me yesterday when we were doing heroic, and I was having none of it. I was just, you can't do it. It's just F3. So I get to tell them, you know. So because they used to do it on the pull, so I didn't necessarily even notice in a crowd until I was sort of more spread out. It's like, hang on a minute, why am I bold? But yeah, it's just, it shows up now. It tells me I've been gnomed. F3 every time. Well, the thing with a hunter is, if you've got to learn how to play another class really quickly, and this is no disrespect to hunters, but if you've got to learn how to play a class really quickly, hunter's a pretty good one to go for. And that's all there is to it. Any info about the legendary ring inside? I don't know anything, really. I don't know an awful lot about what is supposedly coming in 7.2.5. I keep going on the PTR, but I don't know. I can't really see much there. I thought you would enjoy having a Fury buddy, but they stole a 910 socket DOS from me. Well, that's the thing, you see. If there's a particular item, particularly a trinket that is BIS for that particular class, and it's the obvious one to give it for, yeah, you have to share it. But there you go. That's how it works. I suppose in theory I would have had to share my holy relics from Chronomatic Anomaly. But we have, you know, I wasn't, you know, there wasn't a ret in the guild when we were first killing that. And I got a couple early on, but it doesn't seem to drop them anymore. Flying in WoW, you think Blizzard had a good compromise with timing in the expansion after the zones have been fully explored? I think it's a decent compromise as well. A lot of people don't. But yeah, I'm okay with it. They could design the zones with flight in mind. I think their argument is that that means making very boring zones, because if all you're going to do is level on foot, then what's the point of putting lots of little detail into it? It probably is a bit soul crushing for the artists and other developers that have to sort of construct the world to know that people are going to see it for a few days and then that's it. They're just going to see it from the air. You know, so I mean, they will now design them with flight in mind. I think with Legion as well, because they'd made this decision for no more flying. Not only had they constructed the WOD zones with no flying in mind, because they were doing Legion in parallel with it, the same thing came with Legion, so it took more work to do it. Whereas for the next expansion, they know what they're going to do with flying now. They know that it will come in at some point, so from the ground up, they will have sort of thought about it a bit more. But also know that for a good year or so, well, it hasn't been a year, has it even? How long was it? About 8 months before we got flying, maybe a bit less. High Mountain changed before. Yeah, I mean, High Mountain's a very pretty zone, certainly. It's quite nice flying around it, though. It does give you a new appreciation, I think, for some zones when you fly around them. But I definitely understand that you lose something as well doing that. Let's have a look. The first trinket, you'll have to tell me which trinket. I'm sort of aware of the trinkets, but not which bosses they drop off. And also, right, I'll tell you now, no matter what it looks like at the moment, LVUI, I'm not sure it is on Curse. I certainly don't download it from there. Go into Google and put download LVUI, and it'll come up with tukui.org, something like that. That's where you get it from. Yeah, the thing is with the trinkets, we know this. They do this all the time. And I mean all the time, not just now and then. All the time. Whatever the trinkets are like, 12 hours before this patch goes live, they will be different 14 hours after that. Because they do it every time. The first time I did a video when I was just really starting on YouTube, and it was for, what would it have been? It was in WoD 6.2, I think. The Hellfire Citadel patch. And I did a video on trinkets. You must get these trinkets. So awesome. Day late, and I waited till the last minute to bring out the video. And a day later, they just nerfed the hell out of them. So whatever the trinkets are like now, whatever they're like even the day before release, they will change them. If there's a trinket that's good for us, it won't be as good for us very shortly after. Question. So I went from weak auras to tell me when. So what if I change my talents? How can I tell me when add-on replace the talent to track? I'm not 100% sure what you're asking, but there is a talent thing in there. There's a condition you can put in there, right? Now, the thing with tell me when, the thing why I like tell me when, is because for someone who can't be asked to learn how to do weak auras, tell me when's really easy. There are some things weak auras can do that tell me when can't do or can't do elegantly. So weak auras overall, you would say, is better, but it takes more work to learn how to use it. Tell me when doesn't. There is a thing in Tell Me When where you can add it in a condition that it will only work if you have either a certain item equipped or a certain talent, for example. So you can do that as a condition. Do you know that Blizz gave the Ashara Zone High Mountains music? No, because I don't have the music on. The only time I ever have music on in WoW is during when I get into like beta or alpha for the first few weeks, because then I get to listen to it, because it's usually quite good. I just don't want it when I'm playing. So I'll listen to it when I'm first get into either alpha or beta, just to see what it's like, and then I'll turn it off. So I have no idea what music goes with what. They need to put a maximum height on flying that is significantly lower than it is at the moment. I don't know. If our GM, if he moans about keeping his breath up to do mechanics, well, no. Sometimes you just sometimes you just have to have jobs where you're just not going to be able to do that. You know, like Chronomatic Anomaly in the Commando Squad. Like I was in the Commando Squad when we were first killing that boss, which of course is going to wreck your DPS. And he was as well. You know, he was as well, because again, you know, officers, we have to set examples, and I don't mind doing that. Like I'm the person on Star Augur. When on the fell phase you go out for Fell Nova, and when you go back in, you can't. We've got so many melee, you can't get them all around the boss because of the fell thingy patches. So I don't even try and squeeze myself in and cause a grand conjunction. I just stay out. I don't care. Don't care about my damage. Bugger it. End of the day, we can't get everyone in, so if someone stays out, I'll do it. Don't give them monkeys. So to make a condition, yeah. So just try. I mean, there are lots of things to still. You have to sort of play about with things to learn what it can do. Tell me when, but. I just think for a simpleton who can't be asked to learn, tell me when, it's just easier to do the stuff it can do than weak auras. It just can't do as much as weak auras, which is why. So I'm not saying weak auras is inefficiently designed. It can do a lot more. So by necessity, it's a little bit more complex. I mean, I'm sure it's one of those things. If you really went at it and learned how to use it, then you would not need to use tell me when, because you could set these up quickly and easily. As part of an MMO, should I have to go to a third-party website to sim to know which of blah 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 legendaries I'm best to equip? You shouldn't have to, but you do. The only thing I would say on that score is one argument which need not be made is that people will say very casual players are not going to use Simcraft. Why should they? Now, you could make another argument to that very casual players don't need to, because it doesn't matter if they're losing a bit of damage, because they're not playing difficult enough content for it to matter. And if they were to try and play the very difficult content where it might matter, you'd probably lose more DPS from other things they're not doing than you are from not having absolutely the best gear that in theory you could be using. So you only need to really use Simcraft and other things like that. Someone was talking about, what is it now? There's a site that's supposed to be faster than Simcraft. Raid bots or something. I can't remember what it's called now. I was going to try that out. I've not actually come across that. I'm going to try it out this weekend. I might do a video on it. First thing I'll try out is to see if it's accurate. Because it doesn't matter how quick it is. If it's not accurate, there's no point in it. That was the downside to the Ask Mr. Robot one. You know, because I was brought into that on the beta, you know, to try it out. And I thought it's really good in concept. Amazing concept. It wasn't accurate. Raid bots, yeah. I'm going to try it out. What's my opinion on Hakili? If it's one of these things where people go, oh, you shouldn't use Hakili, I will just throw out there, does that mean to say that you don't have any user interface customization at all? Because if the answer is anything other than no, then it's like, well, you're a noob for using that then. Because that's all it is. It's just weak auras. Hakili is just a set of weak auras. It's just customized for you so you don't have to make up your own weak auras. But it does the same job. You could make weak auras. People who make weak auras for a class, that's what it is. That's all it is. I mean, because Hakili wasn't actually working when Legion first came out for the first few months, and I just used Tell Me When to do the same thing. And you can look back at my old videos during that time, before like 7.1, and you know, and you can see how untidy it is because I've got all these rows of stuff. All it is for Hakili is just compacts it down. It just makes it a bit more compact. So you can put into 3 icons what took me about 7. Well, no, you shouldn't 100% trust a Simcraft either, because you've got to bear in mind, as although the people who are, it's a model for the game, and although the people who are creating it are very clever and understand the game and their class very, very well, they are modelling something to which they don't have the raw data. And also, the person using the model has to understand what they're looking at. Far too many people they say they sim themselves, but they sim themselves with the standard stuff, which is like patchwork, at that fight length as well. Well, what good's that for, say, Gul'dan? Gul'dan is longer fight, and also you've got periods of ads. So Beast Lord is much more sensible with, say, a 10-minute duration. So you have to also use it correctly. But yeah, there could also be errors in it because they're modelling it based on real game data. They're not going to Blizzard saying, can you give us your code, please, so that we know how these things work. They occasionally ask how something works and get a response. But a lot of the time, they've got to work it out for themselves. They've got to get people to hit a training dummy for hours on end, send them the logs, and they try and work it out. They spend a lot of time doing that. Is survival any good now? I think it's always been good. I think it's been good all through Legion. I think the 2 downsides to it, one is that it's another melee. And although it's not although we're not particularly melee unfriendly with the fights we've had in Legion so far, the odd one has been. Nonetheless, why would you play melee when you've got ranged specs? I don't understand that of any class. And secondly, I am told by someone who just started playing it again this week, it's not very forgiving of mistakes. So if you make a mistake, it's best relics for Rat Pardon, Wrath of the Ashbringer ones. Simple. Not but necessarily by as much as some people now think. Well, the other thing is you can customize it as well. And you don't you have to be sensitive to the situation with like Hakili or anything like that as well. You know, in particular situations, you don't necessarily hit the one it says. You know, you're looking at a different situation, you might decide to go for something else. If it tells you to use Divine Storm, but you'll know you've got a single target, the thing in front of you, then that's what you'd still do. Or if you know that an ad is about to come up that you're going to have to switch to, and you don't use Judgment at that point, if it's like coming up in a second, you just hold off on it. So little things like that you still have to be aware of. Why would you say to someone in a heroic raiding guild that would like to dabble in mythic raiding, but current raid roster would not lend itself to that? How rewarding and worthy is mythic raiding? To begin with, you will probably find it not worthy and rewarding because it depends what class you play. A lot of good mythic guilds are not going to take someone without some mythic experience unless you play in a class that is in very short supply and your logs are amazing from heroic. So inevitably you will have to join a guild that's not that great. You will find the experience unpleasant because they're not that great, and they're probably not that great because there's plenty of influential idiots in it. I don't want to cast aspersions, but something will be wrong with it. And it might be a very nice guild, and it might be a toxic guild, we don't know, but it won't be a brilliant experience. But you will at least learn stuff, and then from there you can go on. But I won't try and hop too quickly. I would think, get yourself into a guild now and work, you know, learn your craft in Tomb of Sargeras, and then maybe once you've learnt stuff, then for Argus maybe go to a higher up guild or something. But as I say, if you play a class that's in short supply, well, you might. I mean, if a Warlock came along that had never done a mythic boss in their life, but they've got heroic logs showing that they can kick out the damage, they're getting like purple and orange ranks on heroic, we'd snap them up, even if they were a gnome. Apparently, I've got to say that. I'm not allowed to exclude gnomes anymore. We're too desperate. Yeah, that's the thing about survival. So as far I played it a little bit when I was leveling, but not seriously. So I do gather with survival hunters, it's not forgiven of mistakes ultimately. Which rogue spec will I think be best for Tomb? I haven't got a clue. I haven't got a clue for two reasons. One, I'm not familiar with the check because rogue is one of those classes where they're changing. It's at least two of the specs for rogues they're making major changes to, isn't it? And the other thing is, because I haven't tried the fights in Tomb, all I can do is look at Fat Boss and people like that who like do videos on the stuff to try and work it out. So I really don't know. What's your favourite future expansion from WoW from personal standpoint? What would you want to add to the game and improve it? The biggest thing, like I was saying earlier on, I would add is scaling to all levels, all zones. So have it scaling. I'd have it so that you still have to do the new zones in any expansion to do the new levels, but in regards to previous levels, any zone just scales. And a theme, what I would like is not what I'll get. What I would like is something like MOP, where they do something new. It's not a return to the Legion or a return to, you know, time travel, alternate universe rubbish just to bring Warcraft 1 and 2 back. Anduin is going to become a paladin. There's no argument about that. He absolutely is. We've known this for years before they even started this storyline because it was in a book. It's Prophet Valen had a, surprisingly enough, a prophecy where he saw Anduin on Argus leading an army of the light, which is now coming into the game, you know, as a paladin basically. So we know that. You want a level 110 hogger. Well, maybe they will. They keep wrecking dungeons, don't they? And so maybe in a future expansion they'll gut out stockades again and do another level 110 version of stockades. But I suppose they'd have to do Ragefire Chasm as well for Horde. The new tier set for Shaman is useless for pure single target damage. Well, they might be. I mean, it's something they've always been quite good at, ads, with enhancement shamans. Well, I suppose any sort of shaman, really. They've always been quite good at that. What would I make? What would I change for my class before Tomb of Sargeras releases? I would change the talents to actually be useful. I mean, I quite like not having to change my talents from fight to fight. But if you're supposed to, it might at least give me some choices. But yeah, the talents are what's mainly wrong with the Paladin class. Not really the main toolkit. The way it works is sort of alright. I don't like the judgment thing, but I'm not going to bring that. Bring back reforging. Well, yeah, I don't think they're going to. Stockades. Well, no, I mean, they would change it. I mean, they probably wouldn't do it for just that reason. They're not likely to bring out a dungeon that only Alliance can do and another one that only Horde can do. Which talents from the Ashbringer do you think will become baseline? Well, I mean, I can see Wake of Ashes being retained. The only other one we have is the one that makes Divine Storm cause healing, because all the other stuff, really, I mean, I know we've got the new ones, it's a little different. I don't see any reason why they should keep the thing where you put blessings on people to get some strength buff. That's just annoying anyway. That's just, I think that was in the with Blessing of Might being removed, that was just to remind us that we did have other blessings and, you know, use them, because people probably weren't using them. So, but yeah, Wake of Ashes, I suppose we will retain, because I don't think they're going to, I think they've pretty much said they're not going to do a big rework of the classes for the next expansion, and well, Wake of Ashes is part of our kit. Divine Tempest. Well, they might keep the thing where Divine Storm does a little bit of healing, because that harks back to like Wrath, doesn't it? Did do healing in Wrath, didn't it? When they first brought it in the game? Sure it did. It doesn't do much, but you know. Trait 53 now, blimey. I think, what am I on? I'm only on 50. I've still got to spend another crappy point on Blessing of Protection before I can get me Concordance. Oh yeah, Divine Storm projected forward. No, I don't like that. It's a lot of real. It's actually potentially. It sometimes caused me a bit of bother on Gul'dan as well, because like you keep having to position yourself on the eyes to get to hit as many as possible, and sometimes it happens when he does his chuck back, the chains. Forgotten what they're called now. And sometimes I haven't got back into position quickly enough, and I've forgotten about it and got chucked a completely other way. I mean, it's fine because I've got. I've got my bubble if I have to use that. A guild is struggling with attendance. We're on 1 out of 10 mythic after one night. We got to 20% for chromatic. I used to call it chromatic actually. Do not have a mythic raid for 5 weeks straight. Should I stay in the same guild? No. If you want to do mythic now, then they're not going to do mythic in the next one. Like doing at the moment, like Scorpion is just, there's no difference between Scorpion in mythic and in heroic. It's the boss you're supposed to go along and one shot. Chromatic Anomaly actually has some mechanics. It actually technically I suppose should be the third boss, but it's not complex mechanics. And with the amount of gear that people should have now, and specifically artifact traits, it should be a walkover, an absolute walkover. So if you haven't got, and if the issue is the attendance because people aren't turning up, they're not suddenly going to start turning up in Tomb other than to do the heroic stuff. So you absolutely need to move to another if that's what you want to do. Can I explain my thought process when I'm distributing loot in your guild? Yeah, who's going to do the best with it is ultimately our thought process. We do give a little bit of thought to, like, we can't have a situation where, let's say you've got 2 players of the same class and spec and stuff, player A and player B. Let's say you get a relic that's the Bis relic, and it's like a 20 item levels upgrade for player A and just a 5 item level upgrade for player B. But let's say player B, the reason why it's only a small upgrade for them is because they're ramming Mythic Pluses all the time and they're actually getting gear from Mythic Plus, and the other one doesn't do a lot, they're lazy as sin. You might instill in that situation still give it to the one who's working hardest, because you don't want to incentivize people to be lazy and just think, well, it's up to the guild to give me loot. I just turn up for raiding. We don't want that. But generally speaking, it's whoever we think is going to do the best with it in the short term. So we sort of have the next progress boss in mind when we're thinking about that. So if we sort of know that one player is likely to play a key role in it and the other is not, then we'd sort of give it to that player. But we also have to be aware that we don't want a situation where someone's just not getting anything as well. So sometimes there's a little bit of umming and ahhing. Will Blizz replace WoW with another MMO? Inevitably, at some point, World of Warcraft will not carry on forever. The thing is, at the moment, though, I mean, you know, people have been talking about it ending for like almost as soon as it started. But it's still got way more. I don't know how many subscribers it's got. But even when people had been disparaging, saying, oh, it's probably only got 4 million now. 4 million is still way more than anyone else. And you've got, I mean, like, I keep going back very briefly nowadays because it's so dated. I went on to Lord of the Rings Online the other day just to install it on the new computer and just to pay my upkeep on my house so I don't lose my house again. And that basically must have about 100,000 people playing it now, if that. And yet they still keep bringing out new content. They don't obviously make enough to be able to update the engine or do anything like that to actually stop it feeling like a bloody 10-year-old game. But whereas World of Warcraft has. But it's still generating so much income. So I absolutely believe Blizzard when they say they've got several expansions planned for it. But at some point, sure, at some point, it can't keep on forever. I think they will continue the Warcraft franchise. The idea I had for it, and I did a video on this a bit ago, what I think would work really well, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be an MMO. I would like it to be an MMO. I like MMOs. I thought you could have, because think about it now, Azeroth is a living, breathing entity. It's a Titan. So we know it's our job to protect it as well. It's sort of our vested interest to protect it too, because we live on it. At some point, it's going to hatch and turn into a Titan. That's not going to be very healthy for us. So the way I would see it is the final expansion would be, you know, defeating the Burning Legion. Azeroth sort of hatches, and then we sort of escape on, you know, spaceships you know, as they do. And that's the end of the game. Then you could have the new, like, World of Warcraft 2, which is set on a different planet, a proper planet that's not going to hatch. And maybe the main enemy there is not so much the Legion, but the Void Gods, you know, the Void Lords. That's what I would do for what would effectively be Warcraft 4. So that's the storyline I would pursue there, because the Void will still exist. We'll have got rid of the Burning Legion, but that won't get rid of demons. You know, demons will still be a thing. They'll just be leaderless again, and then you'll still have the Void Lords, who basically sent the old gods anyway. You know, they're sort of the old gods' masters. So that's what I would do. That's what I would think. Let's have a look. My guild is struggling with... Oh, no, I've done that one. Sorry. Is Legions a setup for Warcraft 4 game? No. I honestly don't. Although you'd be stupid not to have a contingency in case WoW suddenly became a lot less popular. I'm sure they always have ideas. See, it wouldn't surprise me if the reason they've made Azeroth this Titan thing, because that's a newish thing. It wasn't in the original lore, really. Well, not explicitly anyway. It wouldn't surprise me if that is contingency planning for a Warcraft 4. And obviously it would be stupid not to have discussions about what would we do for the next in the series for Warcraft. But I honestly do not think that they see World of Warcraft ending anytime soon. Like, people laughed when it got to the 10th anniversary, you know, people laughed at the idea it would get to the 20th anniversary. I don't. I think it will. Because why wouldn't it? If you've got games that don't even get a 10th of the number of players that World of Warcraft does, and they can keep bringing out new expansions, why on earth wouldn't World of Warcraft? So you got lucky with the shards, got a 905 Eye of Command. I don't have an Eye of Command of any kind. A 905 faulty countermeasure. Ooh. But I changed them both today with an 880 unstable Arcana Crystal, an 890 strength versatility trinket, and doing the same DPS. That's the way it goes sometimes. Arcana Crystal is really high stat budget. Blizzard said they're not planning on changing that because the baseline version of it is like 860, and they sort of said, well, it's, you know, with the much higher item level trinkets, Arcana Crystal won't look as good anymore, so they don't need to nerf it. But of course, for lucky people who get a high item level one, it's a really good trinket. And stat stick, the thing with stat stick trinkets is they're just reliable. They're, for everyone, they're just reliable. Like other trinkets, sometimes you need to get lucky with procs. Like, this is what gets me when people try and say, oh, I really want that trinket. Like, the classic one is the Elemental Foci. And people go, I must get that. Because they look at logs and they look at the people getting the rank 1s and stuff. And a lot of them have that trinket. And they think, well, it must be amazing. It's not. It's an RNG trinket. The people getting the rank 1s because they had everything go right. For the people who get rank 1s, have everything go right for them. You know? I mean, I've had one rank 1 this whole expansion. I don't really chase them. And everything went right for me there. And that's how it works. You have to have really good RNG. And it's a great trinket for RNG. But most of the time, its average performance is pretty crap. So, whereas stat sticks just do their thing. You're not reliant upon using them perfectly. And you're not reliant on a bit of RNG or circumstances. They just always do their thing. What is my opinion on having multiple raider ranks? My guild having 3 different types of raider is one of the reasons I'm leaving. Oh, I see. Well, it is more common in guilds, like if they have... We used to have them in vanilla. In the guild I was in vanilla, we had 2 raider ranks. Other than trial, obviously, you had trial as well, that'd be 3. And the reason for that is because you'd have your core raid... Your core raid team were the players who you always wanted in progress, because they were the actual good players who put effort into learning the game as best they could, because you didn't have lots of forums and videos and stuff like that telling you how to play. So you always wanted those. So you also wanted to sort of give them more of the gear. But we had a DKP system, so it wasn't loot council. So you gave them priority. And then the other players with the lower rank. So, hi October. But it depends on what they have these ranks for. If they have these ranks, basically to load up gear on their friends, as a cunning excuse to basically pass over loot or even raid spots for their friends, then obviously that's a corruption. And I wouldn't stay in a guild. I've been in a couple of guilds like that. I wouldn't stay in a guild where there was any sort of corruption like that. What if between future 2 WoW expansions we get a Warcraft 4, just like the gap between WoD and Legion? Well, it depends on what sort of game they would want to do. I don't think they'd do another RTS, because they could just basically reboot Warcraft 3 and like update it and stuff. I don't really see a point in another RTS. Also, yeah, I don't... Because it needs to be of its time, isn't it? Like, RTSs have fallen away a little bit. Even MMOs, you can argue, have fallen away a little bit. So, presumably Warcraft... I mean, if they don't do a World of Warcraft 2 as an MMO, they could conceivably try some other form of game. But I don't know what that game would be. I have come out. It is a stats trinket, effectively, yeah. Because as long as you could, but the other thing is, it's quite annoying, isn't it? On some fights where some fights you'll sort of take it because you should be able to keep your stacks up. Like our Demon Hunter has it on Gul'dan. You can hear him whine sometimes. Oh, whine is a nasty word, actually. You can understand his frustration when you phase changing between 1 and 2, and sometimes he'll get to keep his stacks and sometimes he won't. That's pretty annoying. So the ranks give people loot priority so they can get it if they roll. Felt dodgy because they're all officers or close friends. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what I said. If it's that situation, then you don't stick around there. You're not there to like prop other people up. That's like a pyramid scheme. No. Unless there's a good strategic reason for it, no. As expansive as WoW is, going back to an RES game feels like a step back. Yeah, I don't think... Yeah, they wouldn't do another RTS. There'd be no point. They have StarCraft. They also have Warcraft 3. And as I say, they could just update Warcraft 3. And re-release, if necessary. So there is no point in that. So I actually don't know. If WoW 4... Oh, sorry, Warcraft 4 wasn't going to be WoW 2, like an MMO, I don't actually know what sort of game it would be. Why did Blizz remove guild levels? Oh, that will... They brought guild levels in a way to try and incentivize people being in a guild. So that, like... Because you got, like, various rewards and perks for it. But then, all that happened was... You ended up with these cesspool guilds that just collected loads and loads of people into it to earn them gold. And people were then trapped in those guilds. They didn't, because they didn't, there was no interest in the guild leaders of these guilds letting these people go away. So they didn't tell them about other aspects of the game that they weren't providing in that guild, because otherwise they might leave and go to another guild. So you just ended up with the cesspool guild resulting from it. So I think that's why they stopped it. I mean, it would be quite nice. Be quite nice if our exploits could earn little bits of gold. Like, I think they could still do the thing. Like, I understand, like, when people are out doing quests and stuff like that and it generates gold for the guild, that's a bad thing for the cesspool guilds. But maybe they could have it as a perk for guilds who, say, complete a certain level of content each week. So let's say as a guild you clear heroic of whatever is the latest raid that with that in that expansion at that point, a certain small proportion of the gold collected by people while they're out and about goes into the guild coffers. Maybe if they, as a guild, clear some mythic bosses, again, maybe that proportion goes up slightly. So you're rewarding a guild for doing difficult activities. Same apply to PvP as well, of course. And then that way, the guild could do like guild repairs and stuff like that more often. There was a guild summon. I absolutely don't blame them for getting rid of that. The problem with the guild summon, we already have the situation with LFD where before Mythic Plus came along, people just didn't know where dungeons were. It's like, you might say to someone who was going to do a challenge mode, oh, go to this dungeon. It's like, I don't even know where that dungeon is. You know, that have played the expansion for a year and not know where the dungeon is. That created another sense of laziness. Some people didn't even know where the bloody raid was. And also they would just wait as well. They would just wait for their summon. Some people still do that now. They can't in our guild because we don't have a warlock. So, bad luck. But, yeah, if you had the guild summon, then the first person there would just summon people. And so people had no incentive to get there apart from one person. So we did have it, but it went, and it rightfully so. Do I think Blizzard will stick to their guns on the 2-piece plus 4-piece being allowed into Tomb? Yeah, because there is no sensible way of not allowing it. The only argument against it is that there are some classes who have their BIS legendaries in tier slots who are not going to be very happy, and there are some who don't. Rets are a halfway house because we can have good DPS legendaries in non-tier slots, even though our BIS ones, one of them is in a tier slot. But there is no elegant, unless someone can think of an idea, there's no elegant way to stop it being a thing. And they'll also argue that it will naturally sort itself out because the item level of your tier 9 team will eventually fall behind unless you get lucky and get Titan Forged. You would love to see a guild garrison in your expansion. I would like to see housing, proper housing. I'm going to do a video on it at some point, maybe quite soon. Again, I think I might have done one already, but I'm going to do another one. On player housing and a guild house, but because I can see a way for it to be done. Because there's two things. Well, like player housing, guild housing, you've got two sides of it. In some games, it's purely cosmetic. That's all it is. And in some games, there's some functionality to it. Now, obviously, you can't have the functionality that came with garrisons. That was just mad. But I think you can have... And the other thing as well, when you have... What I'm going to talk about is when you have functionality, it should be new functionality. Not functionality that already exists. I think that's where they went wrong in the garrisons as well. If it were new functionality, stuff that isn't in the game yet, people would be a lot less hostile to it. They already nerfed the Ret 2-piece. Yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing. Yeah, we may not, as Rets, want to use the tier 19 2-piece anyway. It all just depends on how it finishes up in terms of that relative. Is it better to have that and take Liadrin's Fury Unleashed instead of the Cloak? For those of us lucky enough to have the choice of legendaries. Or is it better just to have the Cloak and do without the two sets? So, stats for Fury Warrior tier is bad apart from the slot. Well, the thing is, sometimes it can surprise you. Like the other thing is I don't worry about stats being bad on tier gear anyway, because all the other players of that class and spec have got the same stats, and they're equally worthless or useful to all of you. And they balance the damage about how well you're doing as a class or spec. So if it's got crap stats on it, it doesn't matter, because so is everyone else that plays that. You're on an RP server, so guild housing may turn out funny, yeah. Well, you would argue RP players would be the most supportive of it. Or are you thinking some of them might install torture dungeons and S&M dungeons? I've heard what goes on in Goldshire. Why do I call it Goldshire? God, it's bloody Americans, Goldshire. Americans would pronounce it Goldshire. That's because that's the only time I've ever heard it with Americans saying it. I think they have to fix their problem where some trinket for some classes deal 20 to 30% of their DPS. Well, this is a thing. This is one of my little axes to grind. Like, Convergence of Fates was going to be deemed too good for Rets because the combination of that with Crusade and Draft of Souls was deemed too powerful. Whereas Fury Warrior, even at the start of Nighthold, was able to do 10 million DPS with Draft of Souls, well, that was fine. The fact that Fury Warriors can kick the shit out of anything with it, that's no problem. We don't need to nerf it for them. They just nerf it for Rets. So I have a bit of a... I don't like to go on too much about it, because then you get, you know, the world's smallest violin out for the person feeling they're a victim and everything. But it does annoy me when something's good for Rets, it gets instantly smacked down. If something's good for someone else, it doesn't. You know, sometimes they eventually look at it. No, they've already said, they haven't, obviously when Blizzard say something, when they put their foot down, it doesn't necessarily mean it, because they put their foot down over flying and that didn't last long. But I actually believe that we won't have a third legendary slot. I think they mean it about only having 2. Because they've said there's only going to be 2, and I believe them. I mean, it may not, as I say, but I think people would have to kick off for them to change that. Their plan is just to introduce more legendaries, as if we don't have enough. Legendaries and tier pieces. I don't like the legendary system in Legion at all. I hate it, in fact. I think it's ridiculous. I have a hunch in my guild called Veggie. Yes, we do. I played with her actually in WoD and on Sylvanas. Yeah, we were talking about this actually at work, because we were noticing, because I was basically saying in Britain, I think we're the only, we have really weird pronunciation differences. Like when I watch American television, you notice accent differences in different parts of America, but you often don't hear very many pronunciation differences. Whereas in Britain, a much smaller place, you only have to go like 20 miles down the road and they pronounce things very differently, even have different words for things. And there's a curious thing. So if we were using the word shire in Britain, we will say shire, we'll pronounce it like that. But if it's part of a word, it's shire. So I come from Yorkshire. I currently live in Lincolnshire. There's Devonshire and, you know, and Buckinghamshire and stuff like that. But when you're reading Lord of the Rings, you will say the Shire, because shire as a word on its own is pronounced shire. And you have these really weird pronunciation things. Like I was saying, because my dad's from Yorkshire, but my mum's from like Lake District, Breachwick Potter area, and I have this weird thing. So like half, for example, a lot of people in Britain pronounce it half. Americans pronounce it half. I do both. Like if I'm talking about it as a fraction, I'll say half. So half a pizza, say. But if I'm talking about a time, again, it depends what I'm talking about. Like I might say at the moment, or it's going to coming up to 8:30, I might say, or I might say 8:30. So if I'm saying, I don't say half past, I say half past. But if I'm not saying the past, I just use half. So I pronounce words in 2 different ways depending on usage. I was in Kill Loot Recruit, yes, through most of WoD. But yeah, there's a little lesson on British pronunciation. Manchester, Liverpool, yeah, is very, very different, incredibly different. I mean, Newcastle, which is where some of my mum's family is from, which is only up north above Yorkshire, they literally have a different language. I was told actually by someone who grew up near there, who works with me, that the reason for that, and I never knew the reason for it, is it's because there's a lot of Danish words in it from the Viking times. But yeah, Manchester and Liverpool are very different. As I say, I'm now living in Lincolnshire, but I'm only 10 miles away from Yorkshire where I grew up. And there's words I use sometimes to my classes and they don't know what I'm on about. I have to translate for them. You use the Queen's English, do you, down there? You use the Queen's without apostrophe and Queen and without a capital Q as well, do you? Uh-huh. Cambridge is only just below Lincolnshire, though. Although Lincolnshire's a very long county. It covers a lot of sins. It goes past a lot of other counties. But yeah. A third legendary slot would probably be unfair for people who have only legendaries in tier slots. I can't even imagine the mess that would be caused by a third legendary slot. I really don't think they'd do that. I teach science. I have taught maths as well in the past. But at the moment, I'm purely teaching science. And occasionally English when people mix up fewer and less. I don't like that one. I was just saying to my boss the other day, I was saying I always pull up my classes if they get that wrong. But he does it wrong as well. And I said, it's all right, I'll let it slide for you. And he's like, oh, thanks very much. As if I would have much choice. Oh, sorry, Rebnut. Ret Paladins are really loud, so we get looked at more. I don't know. We're not very good at being loud. I think we might be loud, but we keep saying different things, so we're not consistent. So I don't know how often we really do get looked at. What's the difference between fewer and less, whether it's a quantity or not? So you'd have, like, let's say I had a bucket of water, and I said that's too much. I want less water. Well, that's fine. That's less. But if I had several buckets of water and I didn't want as many buckets of water, I would say I want fewer buckets of water. So if it's a number that you can do with it, it's fewer. There you go. The rumour that I've heard about the rings is they're going to be given by a quest line, and you'll be able to wear them with 2 other legendaries. Just a rumour. Yeah, that would be going back to. I think someone's had a dream where they've mixed up Legion with WoD doing that. I'm not sure. I would. No. I mean, anything's possible, but do I think they would do that? I don't think they would. But anything is possible. I mean, you've got to remember, you know, there's a whole new patch coming out about which we know almost nothing. We know almost nothing about Argus, other than we're going to Argus and there's a raid there. We knew almost nothing about it. And yet, they're not just going to bring out a new zone with new world quests, of course, and a new raid. There will be other aspects of the game that are being put in as well. So, who knows? You know, some old legendaries in your bag would use them as a transmog. I don't know. They have a bit of a funny thing about using legendaries as transmogs now. There's a lot of us. There are a lot of Retribution Paladins. It's a very popular class, I think. And there's a lot of reasons why I think it is popular. But unfortunately, popular does not necessarily mean that we band together successfully. Like, the enhancement shamans keep writing letters where several people signed it at the bottom, several like influential people in the community. I don't think Rets really do that very often, if at all. My pronunciation of elite. Do I say elite very often? That's how I'm pronouncing it anyway. Is there another way to pronounce it? I don't think I've even heard anyone pronounce it different. Maybe third legendary if they get really desperate to nerf the last tier. Maybe. But even then, I mean, again, it's just going to cause more problems with classes that have access. Like, if you've got some classes that got access to 3 really top-notch legendaries, and then you've got another class where they've got 2 really standout ones, which is fine now, and the rest, there's a big drop-off to the rest, then they'd have to retune some. See you later, Pinky Tiger. Why does your main stat rise if you put on a new piece? Surely it's my arm that generates the power, not the whatever. We power up the tune and choose gear purely for us. Well, gearing is the way you, like, as I say, leveling up is just an advanced tutorial, really, to play the game. After that, and you have to have some way of building up your character's power, and we do it through gear. That's just the way this game works. It's not the way it has to work, but it is the game this way. And there's certain things about the game they're not going to change because it's a fundamental part of that game. 5 years from now, what would I expect people to say for Legion? That will all depend on what the intervening expansions are like. You know, whether they're praiseworthy of it or not depends on, like, people will praise MOP. When MOP was around, like, I think I must have been one of the few people that praised it a lot. Some people praised individual bits of content, like Throne of Thunder, but as an expansion, a lot of people gave it a lot of stick. But I think more nowadays, people will look on it with a bit of fondness, because what followed it was WoD. And with Legion, if the next expansion is even better, then I don't think people will be critical of Legion as such, but they're not going to see it as a shining beacon because the next expansion was even better. So it entirely depends on what comes next. No, sorry, it's Elite. Elite? Or Elite? What? Huh? Elite? It's Elite anyway. I've always pronounced it like that. From when I first got the Elite game when I was about like 4 or 5. They do weird stuff in Desperation. And at the end of expansion, of course, they will not care. Like, I mean, one thing that they're probably going to do for the end of expansion, because remember what they've said is, the skins, you're not going to be able, once the next expansion comes out, we're not going to be able to do the quests to get the skins for our artifact, but we are going to be able to use them for transmog if we've got them. Now at that point, there's going to be a lot of people whining that there's a few there missing. I can see them nerfing the way to get those at that point. Power up the character stats and gear is just for looks. I would like that, but I just think it's a fundamental part of the game, the gear stats thing. I mean, I would like that. That would be good. But I just don't see them doing it. Because there's some aspects of the game that have just always been like that, and they won't touch. Mop was too fluffy and cute. I don't think it was cute. You should have gone to the bug zone a bit more. There's nothing cute about that. But the thing I liked about Mop was there was new lore. It's like TBC was all about finishing off the Illidan, even though it's come back to haunt us. The Illidan storyline that started in Warcraft 3. Wrath was all about finishing the Lich King storyline, started in Warcraft 3. You know, Cataclysm was all, you know, about dragon aspects, which, all right, wasn't really an RTS thing, but came from the books, the lore. Then you had Mop, which was totally new. Really new. Okay, we'd had Pandara and sort of we had Chen Stormstout, but the actual, all the stuff in it and the storylines were all brand new. They weren't a continuation of a previous Warcraft game. And then it's almost like people didn't like that, so they went completely the other way. It's like, oh, you like nostalgia, do you? Here's like nostalgia by the bucket load. And we had WoD, which was a complete disaster. And now we've got Burning Legion again. Like, it's like in the original lore before World of Warcraft came out, it seemed to me that the Burning Legion invaded about once every 1,000 years. We've had them invade about 3 times now in the past, like, 10. What? Vanilla was the best because of variation, yeah, absolutely. Because they were, the thing is, they didn't necessarily know there were going to be expansions. They didn't know, they certainly didn't know it was going to become as successful as it did. So yeah, you had, in the first year, you had Onyxia, so you had Dragonflight, and then you had Molten Core, so you had Elemental Lords, and then you had like Blackwing Lair, so, you know, Dragonflight back again, as well as the, you know, the Dark-Iron Dwarves and stuff like that in there. And then you had like Anchorage, so you had like Old Gods, and then you had Scourge coming in the form of Naxxramas. So yeah, they went all over the place. There was no real theme. The next expansion will be an Old Gods expansion. That's all there is to it. Mop also did have very good content. I very much, apart from the dailies, I learned to hate dailies in that expansion. I was fairly ambivalent towards dailies before that. You know, it was like, well, I'll do them. But after Mop, like, as soon as I didn't need them for the rep anymore, I refused to do another daily. I didn't even do them for the Lucky Charms. I did like, I would rather sit in Stormwind doing pet battles with rats and take longer to get my charms than to do dailies. I refused to do dailies for that. Well, you say no demon stuff. I mean, not as a raid, there wasn't. But we had plenty of that then in the next expansion. But, you know, there were demony things. I mean, Desolus had, like, demon, like, Legion invasion stuff. Yeah, there were just the dailies thing was an absolute nightmare. The fact that I mean, it was the worst thing about it was the fact that what you were getting from it was a rep grind. That was what it was. You would grind in rep to get access to gear and like patterns. It's just, and no one wants a rep grind. I would rather just do it in my own time. Like, I've quite liked the rep in this game because you never felt the need to. Okay, some people, you know, I suppose you had to grind a certain amount of Nighthold rep, but even that I was a bit slow and it didn't mean a real harm. And you know, I didn't feel the need to rush. Like, I did stuff to get to Revered with Legion Fall, just to get flying, and then after that I didn't really I took my time to get Exalted, and it just came when it came. I like world quests as a piece of content. I just don't want to have to do lots and lots of them. So I don't appreciate the the order halt thing that potentially gives you double artifact power from doing them, because then you sort of feel you have to do all of them. Not that I do, but you sort of feel bad when you don't. But I like the world quests as a piece of content. I mean, world quests were in Warhammer Online many years ago, and I was thinking back then because one thing I liked about Warhammer Online, like the PvE was mostly terrible, but there were a couple of good features in it. One of which was that when you had a quest, you could open up your map and you could see a little number that told you where to go to do that quest. At the time, that wasn't in World of Warcraft, and it came in, whether they nicked it from that or it was an MMO or whatever. So that was one really good thing. But I remember thinking at the time they should also put in, like, they were called public quests or something rather than world quests. But I think they should put stuff like that in, and that's what we have now. But it was like years later. I fear they're running out of lore. I don't think they're running out of lore. I think they just keep going back to the old stuff, the old storylines. Whereas they could easily do new. Like, we don't do very much on the Void and the Void Gods and the old gods. Sorry, we don't do very much on that. That's not really explored in any great detail. You know, if you think about it, even in Wrath. I mean, I didn't play through Wrath, but old gods wise, you had like Ulduar. But storyline-wise, there wasn't a lot of storyline around it. It was just a boss at the end of it and a little quest chain before that. Gets awful when you're like, if I do every one of these every day, in 2 months I can be exalted and get some gear. Yeah. I hate PvP in World of Warcraft. I don't like... I used to think I hated PvP in MMOs because the only thing I had to go by was World of Warcraft. I thought, this is terrible. The thing that does it for me is it's a game. And I know it's a game, but, you know, PvP feels like a game in this game. It's like, if you think about it this way, in Elder Scrolls Online and Warhammer Online, what were you doing? You were in a warband of varying sizes. There was no attempt to keep you the same size either. Winner takes all. Assaulting forts and things like that. And there was tactics you'd get people to act as scouts and try and hide behind bits of terrain to see who was coming. Because it was a huge area. And you actually behaved like an army. And you had proper warfare. World of Warcraft, what am I doing in PvP? I'm stood somewhere guarding a flag. What? It's like occasionally a little skirmish will break out. That's not PvP. That's playing a game. I mean, the most ridiculous form of it is in Star Wars: The Old Republic, where you literally have a game. It's basically like being in a pinball machine, only you get to kill people, and that's what PvP is in this game. And even the old world PvP was just a big pub fight. There were no objectives. There's nothing. There's no assaulting a town. That's what. And I was quite excited for Wintergrasp when I was playing in the Wrath beta. But the problem was it was on too small a scale. And of course it was still instance. It was still like a game. It's like this match. You've got a set amount of time to do it. You know, it's like playing a football match or something. You're playing a game. You're not at war. It doesn't feel like war. It's terrible. So I don't engage with it at all. Whereas, and there's plenty of MMOs I'm sure that also have really good systems, but the ones I've played that have been really good, Warhammer Online, even though as a game it was very bad, but it had that right, and Elder Scrolls Online, because as I say, you can go into Elder Scrolls Online. It's vast. The PvP area is vast. It doesn't interfere with the PvE zones. So if I'm doing PvE, I'm not going to be bothered by anyone ganking me. There's no opposition factions in PvE, which is great. So you're not excluded from playing with each other as well if you just happen to play different factions. But then when it comes to PvP, you're going into the area. You first of all appraise the situation, you see where you go, and you can decide to defend a fort, attack a fort, go with a smaller band and capture smaller objectives, harry forces, try and ambush people as they go through a convenient pass or something. So much to do. But you don't get any of that. You don't get any of that in Warcraft. None at all. This week's Broken Shore quest. Yeah, I noted that before. Loot some chests. Nice one. Good. Lovely. Cracking. I've lost all hope with these now. We're going to get one more good quest, aren't we? And that's to get the mount. And my mount's rubbish, so I don't care. I need to level up the Shaman, though, to get it on that. I do feel I should probably level up characters and get the good for the good mounts, because again, I don't think we're going to be able to get those when the next expansion launches. So don't miss out on any good mounts that we might regret later. I have seen Total War, but the thing is I've never played Total War. And again, I have limited time to play other games. But I have seen Total War Warcraft. And I have heard that it seems to be... sorry, Warhammer, yeah. I have heard that it seems to be quite good. Your PvP experience has used Draft of Souls. What's my PC setup? I don't know, what do you mean? I've got a monitor here and I've got the PC there. I don't think that's what you mean. It's a new PC, basically. I've gone for, with some advice, I went for AMD... What's it called now? I need to look up what's my system. Where do I find my... I got Windows 10, which is my biggest regret. Something very, very not right. Oh, backup and restore Windows 7 option. I might do that. I don't even know where I find out what my system is like in Windows 10. Oh, here we go. AMD Ryzen 7 1800 8-core processor, 3.6 gig, 32 gig of RAM, quite fast RAM as well. I mean, the computer is way better spec than my last one. GeForce GTX. What was the graphics card? Actually, it's got quite a good graphics card in it. Well, people keep saying that. People do keep saying, oh, well, I've got Windows 10, it works fine. But there's something not right. I mean, once you've got it up and running, it's okay. But it just seems to boot up stuff very slowly at the start. And I really don't see why that would be. But the other thing is, there is one way it is screwing me over, and that certain programs don't work. That did work. And I noticed this when, like, years ago when you could get the free upgrade to Windows 10 from 7 on my other computer. I went like that, loads of stuff didn't work, went back. Yes, SSD, yeah. Oh, actually, no. This particular, the main drive in this one is a hybrid drive. Okay, so I'd expect it to be slower than an SSD, although I might actually just go for an SSD this summer and to hell with it. But the problem is it's too slow, even for a normal drive. Like, I've had computers with a normal drive in. Oh, no, there's nothing worse than gnomes. But yeah, I am likely to go to hell with it. I'll just get an SSD this summer as well. But it's not, it doesn't seem to be that's the issue. It can. I had an SSD in my older computer. I wanted a larger drive. I didn't want it to be, because they cost a lot. But I think I might just go for it and get one in anyway. But my main issue with Windows 10 is not because I say once you've loaded it up, it's sort of okay once it's settled down. But it's the fact that certain stuff doesn't work. So I have a harder time with certain programs now. Like, I can't. My webcam software won't work. So to use obviously I can use it through programs like this, but I can't use it using the actual webcam software. I can't install Star Wars: The Old Republic at all. Will I be streaming gameplay after the Q&A? I don't think I will today, because these tend to go on for quite a while. I will be at the weekend at some point, though. I will have to put details out there. It may not be World of Warcraft. I'm going to set aside some time at the weekend to just do some gaming, which could easily be Elder Scrolls Online, because I want to play some of that. What do I think they'll retcon in Chronicles 3? Talking about Warcraft 3. Well, they've already retconned an awful lot of stuff. Apparently, as well, like the thing is with Illidan, I didn't actually think you would see him as a bad guy in the early days either, in the original lore. But I saw him as like someone who was trying to help and maybe made some wrong decisions now and then. And Malfurion, who basically did nothing useful, apart from blow a horn, when Archimonde came visiting. He just sat there in judgment, telling him he was making all the wrong decisions, when all Malfurion seems to do is sleep and blow a horn now and then. But they've made it so that he had this master plan to fight the Legion, where it's clear from the original lore that Illidan was shit scared of Kil'jaeden. The idea that was planning an attack against the Burning Legion doesn't fit with the original lore, and I don't see that they needed to do that. There's no need to have done that, because he was never a bad guy as such. He just went down a particular road wanting to do good and ended up in a dark place. He was a tragic character, really. But yeah, so that's already been done. Well, apparently I'm being told as well, from because I haven't read all the books, that Arthas has effectively already been retconned in like official lore through the books anyway, compared with what happened in Warcraft 3. So presumably that will be the impression of Arthas will not be the same one I got from Warcraft 3 itself as well. But if they're going to make any new changes to it, I don't know. Simpermuts. No, I must have missed that then. Comparison sims an easy way with gear in your bags. I don't. The thing is, I don't mind doing sims because you can plan ahead anyway. I quite like data analysis. The only add-on I'll use sort of for in-bag stuff is Pawn, but all that does is multiply numbers together. You know, and I just create several profiles. Like I'll create a Beast Lord type profile, a Patchwork type profile, an AoE type profile, and just see which bits of gear, stats-wise, obviously don't work for trinkets or relics, are better in different situations. Even though I don't really change my gear much from fight to fight either, so I don't change anything. I don't change my gear, I don't change my talents. Do I know that Arthas' sister is in the Priest Order Hall? No, I didn't. I knew he had one, but I didn't know it was a... What is that, a champion? One of the champions? I haven't really... I played a priest a little bit in the alpha, but not very much. Because it was just disciplined priest just to try it out. And it had a god-awful artifact quest, I remember. I didn't... yeah, so I would... I don't know. But no, I don't. I haven't leveled my priest up in Legion. As I say, I only did a few levels on it in the alpha. Just to try it out, really, in dungeons a bit. And verify that I'd be god-awful as a disciplined priest. From when I started playing Ret, has it evolved well? Yes, I think it has. Like, when I started playing Ret, there wasn't really a lot to it. It was in TBC, and it was as a lion, so I didn't get Seal of Blood. So all it was Seal of Command. You judged, and then reapplied your Seal of Command. It was a nice little macro to do that. You know, Crusader Strike. You had Avenging Wrath. That's about it. Have I ever main tanked a raid? Not progress, no. I have main tanked in alt raids, and I've main tanked some farm. When the thing is, like, it was quite funny. Like in Blackrock Foundry in WoD, we were trying me out to tank a few mythic bosses because there was going to come to a time where one of the tanks might have had to go away for a week or two. So they were thinking, maybe I should learn how to tank these bosses. And I found it easier to tank on my Blood DK that was 20 item levels lower than I did on my Paladin. I don't like tanking. Oh no, I'll tell you a lie. I have tanked progress, but not main tank progress. That was in Sunwell Plateau. That was annoying because I would do Kaliskos and Brutalis as Ret. Then I would disappear off because there was no dual spec then. Disappear off to Stormwind to change my talents and Fell Mist as Prots, gathering up ads. And then back again to be Ret for Twin Eredar. Then back again to be Prot for Muru. And then back again to be Ret for Kil'jaeden. I didn't really get to see much trash in Sunwell Plateau. Apart from the first stuff, of course. Mind you, most of the trash was before the first boss. Do I have the Maximilian Northshire as a follower? No, I don't. No, maybe I don't know. I should do that, I suppose. But I don't know. I don't have any real unusual, any followers that you don't get directly from your order hall. People keep saying I should do the Meatball one as well from Brawlers Guild. But yeah, there's several little bits of content I haven't done. I should at some point also unlock the Corrupted Ashbringer skin, I suppose, as well, just for the sake of it. You know, I should probably collect as many of the skins as I can so that I don't regret not having them later on. At the moment, I might not like the look of them, so it's not worth it. But, you know, after this expansion, they're gone. Yeah, people have told me that Meatballs for that. So I need to get myself a Brawlers Guild invite and I think apparently you only have to do one or something. So it should be straightforward. And I can get rid of that dead Night Elf who I currently have as a champion. You can unlock the Corrupted Ashbringer crest via the other hidden skins on Holy or Prot. I don't know what that means. I have a hidden skin on Prot, because I got that from doing the Withered training scenario, because I used to do that as Prot to begin with, until it became easy to do as Ret. But I don't know what you mean I can unlock it via the other hidden skins on Holy or Prot. I haven't done anything on Holy, actually. I need to learn. I need to maybe I should go in LFR. I keep saying I should go in LFR as Holy just for a laugh. I did do once, but I just ended up doing damage. If you do the Dungeon World Quest PvP requirement, you also open the Ret one. Well, but I have to do that as Prot. I'll have a look at it maybe at some point. Yeah, I haven't got Morrows. If you do the archaeology... Oh, no, I haven't done any archaeology. If you do the archaeology skin on one character, you get all the rest of your tombs. Well, as I say, at the moment, I'm not going to look into it. Maybe for summer, I will look into skins because, yeah, at some point, when the expansion ends, which is, I don't know when that would be, but at some point, we are going to lose the ability to be able to gain them again. And I should probably have it for that. I have heard that the Ret one is awkward. Even though I don't really know, because like people were asking me when it first became a thing or became known, you know, for advice on doing it. I was like, I don't even know how to do it. I am aware you're supposed to wait around for some blob or something. I don't know, but I have no interest in it. The skin that I was waiting for was the one you got for getting your 34th or 35th trait, something like that, which is the one I now use because I like that one. Well, yeah, the Order Hall, it'll be interesting to see what we get in the next expansion, because the Order Hall was always going to be in, because garrisons, they put so much work into garrisons, it was basically WoD, that you could tell that they sort of thought this was going to be the future, and were taken aback when people said, no, it's not. So the Order Halls are just a gutted version, because you're not going to tell me as well that they thought it was a good idea to have the Order Halls as they are now, because, like, that's the problem. You've got all these Rets in it. So the Ashbringer, which is supposed to be unique, you've got a dozen Ashbringers in the Order Hall at any one time. That's not right. Surely we were not supposed to be all in there. It was supposed to be a phase thing. But I think that's they identified that as being one of the concerns with garrisons, that you're just alone in this little place. So I think that's why the Order Hall doesn't phase to individuals. I think, I don't know that. But it'll be interesting to see if they've just dropped the concept altogether for the next expansion, because they couldn't for Legion, because they developed it in conjunction, in parallel with WoD. Well, the thing is, the real Corrupted Ashbringer, I mean, I would have liked to have got it just purely from a lore point of view. But given that you can't go and do the Scarlet Monastery event anymore, it's sort of pointless from that point of view. And if truth be told, if we're going to be completely honest about it, the Corrupted Ashbringer, even more so than the Purified Ashbringer, is a cartoon of a sword. It looks ridiculous. If I were to show that to someone who doesn't play World of Warcraft and say, this is a really desirable weapon, they will just look at it and wonder what I'm playing. Is it considered rude to be looking around for new guilds without turning your current guild? Looking around, fine. Actively applying, a bit dicier. Leave it in the middle of the night? No, I wouldn't do that. That's not nice. You should tell people. I mean, I would. You know, the last time I left the guild, I told my GM before I started. You know, I told them GM that I'd be looking, and then looked. Then I was totally honest about that. So I don't see the problem with that. But if you feel the need to be secretive about it, that's one thing. But then when you've got yourself into another guild, you should say, you should sort of tell. Because the problem is, you know, it's not very nice on the guild if you just suddenly leave, because they think they've got you for the next raid, say, or whatever, and then you're not there and you didn't tell anyone. Not nice. So I think you'd have to have a very good reason for not telling them. But there's no excuse for not telling them at the point at which you're going to leave. You should give them because they need to find a replacement. You shouldn't drop them in it. You should give them like we've been quite lucky in some, like we've had a terrible time with recruiting, but we have been quite fortunate in that some people who've wanted to leave, mostly just to quit the game, not to actually leave the guild as such, have actually given us they've actually said, look, I don't want to play anymore, but I'll let you find a replacement. Some of those players have actually carried on playing for weeks after because we've struggled to find replacements. What about racers having to use their home city as a hub? At least Silvermoon City will be populated again. It is a knotty one, actually. I don't know what they would do sensibly. The problem is if you try to give people a reason to go to their home cities, then no city then feels populated because you're spreading people out too far. Also, some will resent it more than others. Silvermoon is way out the way. And they never bothered to have flying in there or the Dreno starter area just because of the way it is. Well, it is. All the other Horde. This is the problem with Horde. I don't understand why people like Horde so much. Because they're ugly and their buildings are boring. But some people like being ugly and living in a mud hut. What do I think about Major Dinner Bell? I don't even know what that is. It sounds like a Karazhan trinket, but I don't actually know what that is. You get gnomes, yeah, gnomes in Ironforge. The leeches they are. At least, I mean, they've stuffed them in a little corner at least, I suppose, if you can have a corner of a circular city. I don't think their racials are better. They were better, and I think that's just a perception that has now persisted. They did make a mistake in having them better at one point, which is why so many people migrated to Horde. I think the reason why most are Horde now is just because when they evened them out, there was no point in then going back to Alliance. You might as well just stayed as Horde. So you have this now disparity. And because of the disparity, more people go Horde because they think, well, there's more guilds there. It's surprising the number of people that have no confidence that they'll make it in a guild when they go to a guild. Because the number of people that have said they want to go Horde or stay Horde because if they went Alliance and didn't make it in the guild, well, they're a bit stuck because there's so few Alliance guilds. It's like, how have they no confidence that they're going to make it in the guild? If you're Horde, I am calling you ugly. Unless you're Night Elf, not Night Elf, Blood Elf, in which case you're too pretty. There is such a thing as being too pretty. No, I mean, I miss Arcane Torrent mostly for Mythic Plus dungeons. I was okay with missing out for it on pulls. It's useful on pulls, but I can live without it. I haven't seen the new Ret Pala Legendary. Is it actually a thing? Has it actually been, revealed properly? Is it in the new PTR or something? Is there a new? Because it wasn't in the last. I'm now not trusting anything unless it comes into the PTR, and it wasn't in when I checked a couple of days ago. And I haven't seen a new build. Let me just check. There isn't a new build, is there? Blood Elf melee animations are bad. They are bad. Yes, they are dreadful. I don't know anything about the new legendary rings. Am I missing something? Hold on. Let me see if I'm missing something. The thing is, though, if you Horde, then you either go Blood Elf or Tauren, and you can't go Tauren. Gain one of the following talents based on your... That can't be right, surely. Gain one of the following... Huh? Whose brain fart of an idea is that? Is that... What? Legendary that just gives you one of your talents. I'm going to have to check this later. That sounds ridiculous to me. Well, there's a lot of things out of Diablo 3 in this game. You know, the meme was World of Diablo at the start of Legion, well, when Legion was in beta. I've no issue with divine purpose. I'd have got an issue with a legendary that just gives you a talent. It's like, here, take this talent. Like, you know, what? What? What if you already have that talent? I mean, I know you wouldn't take divine purpose. What if you did? Have you got 2 sets of divine purpose? Or are they getting rid of divine purpose? Here we're getting something else in place of the missing talent. What's happening? What? Someone explain to me. Is divine purpose still a talent? Or are they removing it, replacing it with another talent and putting that on the legendary ring? Or is it like, here you've got divine purpose with this legendary. Well, what if you already have divine purpose? Yeah, but what if you did? Like, I know it makes no sense on Rex, you wouldn't use divine purpose. But if on protection, say, where I might want to use Holy Shield, and that gives me Holy Shield as well. Double Holy Shield? What, is it twice as effective? Or am I not allowed to take that talent with that legendary? I would love to be in one of these meetings where things like this are decided. I really would. This sounds ridiculous. Oh, Major Domo's dinner bell. What? Major Domo's dinner bell? Increase random second stat by something for 15 seconds. Second stat. Havoc use mastery food to always have the second stat boosted by mastery. Which, yeah. I don't know then. But then this doesn't make any sense. Okay, at the moment we don't use divine purpose, I get that. But for other classes there must be talents that they would use. Blizzard keeps saying they don't want dead talents. Okay, they've sort of glossed over whenever a ret says, hang on a minute, what about us? But for other classes, they've sort of, we don't want dead talents. This creates a dead talent. What? Hang on a minute. Hammer of Racking It. That's a PvP talent. What's happening to that? It's been removed. I don't care about that. It's PvP talent. Yeah, I get that, Action Man. But what I mean is, there's a talent that item is saying not to take. Which goes against what Blizzard said about you should have this choice of talents. I mean, it doesn't matter for us because we take Crusade anyway. We just get the benefit now of Divine Purpose. Yet more procs, which some people like. But it just doesn't fit with what they said is their intention, their philosophy. Have a look at this. It wouldn't make a talent dead. They would still have the talent. They just wouldn't be required to run with the legendary. Well, yes, this is true. But talents are usually fairly powerful things. So, you know, like a lot of people would quite like to have Crusade with Divine Purpose. Maybe. Especially with the legendary cloak. Ooh. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be using two-piece tier 19. Oh, would it be stronger than the belt, Chain of Throne? I'll have to see about that one. This is the new one. Hammer of Reckoning. When your allies with greater blessings take damage, you gain Reckoning. Consume 50 stacks of Reckoning to hurl. Is this the Reckoning bomb coming back? Hang on a minute. No, it's not April the 1st anymore. This is real. Oh my god. To hurl a magical hammer that strikes an enemy for set blah blah blah. You gain Crusade stroke Avenging Wrath for so long. This presumably is data mined and not actually on the PTR. Do I take it? They are also adding new... Yeah, I knew they were adding new legendaries. I just didn't necessarily know the... I will make a video. I will inevitably make a video if this is all true. Yes. I'll want to digest it all first. Yeah, the Reckoning Bomb. That's what that sounds like to me. The Reckoning Bomb. Well, it's literally what it is. It even calls it Reckoning. The 50 stacks is interesting because that does sound like it's a nod to the pack. Wasn't it 50 stacks they built up for that one shot of Kazakh in vanilla? It's on the PTR, is it? Oh, hold on, mate. Well, I'll check anyway. I'll have a look. I don't think we've had a new PTR build. We haven't got a new PTR build. There's nothing. It doesn't say it wants to install anything for me. So, Demon Hunter get both First Blood and Bloodlet. Sounds all right. I'm not sure about that. I need to think about that. I mean, ultimately with these things, it will just depend on which seems more powerful. I would guess, surely, a legendary that gives you Divine Purpose as a ret would be more powerful than Chain of Thrain. Surely it must. Be interesting to see. Well, yeah. Well, the thing is with Divine Purpose, though, this is the. I mean, again, I shouldn't talk about rets too much because not everyone here is a ret. But the problem with Divine Purpose and Crusade, it's like you can only nerf Crusade so much because they keep trying to do that before you make it worse than just taking a baseline Avenging Wrath, because they did that in the beta. And Divine Purpose, if you keep buffing the proc rate, in theory it sounds like it would just be better, but then you just risk procs running into each other, so it's not as powerful as it maybe sounds. Because at some point you can't keep having it proc, because then you're not using your builders and stuff like that properly, and you're not having a proper rotation. It might not be as powerful as you think. So I think that's why you can't really get Crusade and Divine Purpose to meet in the middle very easily, because there's a limit to how much you can buff Divine Purpose before you're effectively getting diminishing returns, and there's a limit to how much you can nerf Crusade before you make it go from too good to useless. Worse than useless, in fact. Do I think it would hinder the World First Race? I really don't know. Usually World First Race guilds, there's so few of them that can realistically get a World First. There is at least a race now in this expansion. And they will find some way to game it, because they always do. It's more how it affects the rest of us that I'm thinking about. Because there's bound to be some arguments about the choice of talent as well. I'm thinking. Because that one for Paladins, for example, so it said Divine Purpose for Rare, which is the final tier of talents. Holy Shield for Prot, which if I remember right, is in the first tier. I don't know. Judgment of Light talent. I wasn't allowed to take the Judgment of Light talent because our Holy Paladin at the time forbade me from taking it, because he was taking it and it kept overwriting his. Although we technically don't have that Paladin anymore. I'm guessing the other one wants to use it as well. See some changes for Ret. Yeah, there will be some changes, but there won't be major changes, because even though there might be major changes to the way we play, just because of new legendaries and new tier set bonuses, and new bosses, style of bosses. But ultimately, because Nighthold was a very, realistically, it was a much more of a cleave type instance. You had, like, I think Emerald Nightmare, it's probably fair to say, was much more single target focused. So was Trial of Valor, really. And then I think Nighthold was a bit more cleavy. I don't know whether maybe Tomb of Sargeras will be a bit more of a mix. It maybe will. Oh, like not Shady Moon. Well, I might have a think about that then. Maybe not for one. Well, we'll see. Because Divine Intervention is still quite nice. No, hold on. Yeah, yeah, that's what it shares it with, isn't it? Divine Intervention and Crusader. Oh, Cavalier, sorry. Yes. But yeah, I mean, other specs are changing a lot. We're not going to change a lot. It's just, it's because of other things that we will effectively change. Yeah, the new legendary, the new set bonuses, the fact that Divine Hammer won't be taken on every single boss. in every single situation. Just where there's cleave involved, which is probably quite right. Oh. So yeah, I'm gonna have to have a look at these, and if a PTR build does go up where they're in there, which is what I would like, I'll have to have a look at those, and I'll have to do a video on that this weekend, I think. They like the lots of legendaries, and I don't think there's... The thing is, you see, when they get an idea into their heads that's a good thing, the only way they'll change their minds is if there's a huge backlash against it. Ergo, flying. There hasn't been a backlash against the legendary system. They will change it for the next expansion, because what they keep saying is they see the problems with the legendaries in Legion as being the throughput legendaries. So what they, I'm pretty sure, said was they wish they'd have just made them all utility legendaries. So it's very likely that for the next expansion that's what they will be. They will all just be utility legendaries and no throughput legendaries. So we'll see on that one. If they remove Divine Purpose, they would have to do it on this build. Let's have a look. What have you got there? Well, that's the current build. But I haven't installed any new patches since the weekend, so I'm guessing that's the same one that was out at the weekend, which didn't have any new legendaries on that. Well, it didn't. So you think even with the second talent as bonus per legendary, with the legendary system as a whole will be removed? No, I think they'll keep the legendary system, but I just think they'll remove throughput legendary. I think they'll just make all... I think what they want to do is make all legendaries in the next expansion utility ones. But I think they will still keep to the same idea of loads of legendaries, and then when the next patch comes out, loads more legendaries, and when another patch comes out, loads more legendaries. Has there been any word? There's been no official word, but someone did show me something. There was, and apparently you can never tell whether a leak is accurate or not, but the leak from the same source was accurate about WoD. So a lot of people put a lot of store on this idea that it's an Old Gods related expansion. So there has been no official word though, and there won't be until they announce. Well, I would assume they'll be announcing it at BlizzCon this year, but I don't know. Maybe they won't. But if they don't announce it at BlizzCon this year, then it means that this expansion has got a long way to run yet. Well, you keep the legendaries anyway. You don't throw them away. Well, I mean, when you have so many legendaries, they become common anyway. It's a bit like just the way the game's evolved. I remember getting my first legendary, which is a craft. My first two legendaries were both crafted legendaries, and it took a lot of farming to get the mats in a lot of different places, and then find someone who could craft them for me. The first one, to my shame, was crafted by a gnome. A gnome called Stumpy as well, to my everlasting shame. So I had these gloves on that just had made by Stumpy on, which was terrible, really. At the time, I didn't hate gnomes as much as I did now. It was still growing then. But yeah, so you got these legendaries, and it took a long time to get a full set of legendaries. And then, you know, nowadays, you expect to get a full set of legendaries very shortly after level capping. Even at the start of an expansion, it's just one of those things. So legendaries have become legendaries did become the new epic, and then even they're being thrown around like confetti. Can you throw away legendary upgrade tokens? You'll have to click delete when you try. But you just don't do the quest anymore. What they did say though is, with because there's going to be a new quest, so you can upgrade them from 940 to 970, and they did say that when you've got no more 940 legendaries left, that the quest will no longer appear, because that's the problem we've had. You know, you upgrade your last legendary to 940, and then but the quest is still, you can still do the quest, and then people are just collecting these useless Titan essences. Do I think they'll release a new artifact skin for Argus? I don't know. They could do. They're keeping it very quiet if they are going to. But that is entirely possible. Oh, actually, no. Or is it? Let's think about this. Because in the Order Hall, there's a pedestal, isn't there? Or there is in the Ret one anyway. Or the Paladin one, I should say. For each of the skins. So when you unlock a new proper skin, not a recolor, the Ashbringer sort of appears there. So presumably there's only as many unique skins as there are pedestals there. So maybe not. Yeah, that's the thing. When 7. Hold on, let's get this right. 7.2.5 comes in. When you get a new legendary, it'll be 970. So we'll get the quest to be able to upgrade to from 940 to 970. No, the helm is probably the last one for Ret Paladins that's actually just mostly bad. Maybe for Mythic Plus dungeons. What do I think of Convergence for Ret? Should we change it when Tomb of Sargeras is released? I don't use it on that many fights now. You know, I did. It was quite funny actually because it wouldn't drop from Elisand at all Nighthold really, and I kept joking I'm not going to get it till we kill it on Mythic, and that was a long time coming. Now, ironically, I did get it on normal mode a couple of weeks before, but then we killed it on Mythic, and sure enough, there it never dropped on Heroic ever. I just kept going in it, just kept getting artifact power, even when I did like sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. I didn't do it 3 times a week, many weeks, and she did drop it on Mythic, so I got that one for Gul'dan because it's useful on Gul'dan, I think. Sometimes I sort of think maybe it's not, but I think most of the time it is useful. But ultimately, it's not that useful on a lot of fights because most of the fights you're not getting an extra use out of it, and it's not, apart from Star Augur, helping you use it at more convenient time either. Maybe Botanist you can sneak an extra use out of it. Do I have any ticks for a heroic guild transition into Mythic? It's a different mindset. There'd be quite a lot of things you have to change about it. Because heroic, you can go as long as you've got enough tanks, healers, and the DPS ratio is all right. You just go with it. Whereas for Mythic, you're expecting people to commit to turn up a particular day, and you need to know that you've got your best setup if you're going to make any sensible progress. And you also have to have a slightly different idea to loot sensibly. Actually, I suppose you could say at this point, not really, because we're coming to the end of Nighthold. But you need to take the best people for the fights, which may not be the people who necessarily... Because, you're going to have to bench people. That's ultimately the big difference between Mythic and Heroic. In terms of guild management, that you have to bench some people for Heroic. So you're going to have to be able to deal with that. And make sure that you're not, you can't have a situation where the squeaky wheel gets the oil, because then you're taking people who are making a fuss if you don't, but they're not necessarily very good. And that's going to hurt you. What if at the end of Legion we defeat Sargeras and Argus? Sargeras isn't on Argus. You saw with the patch trailer, Kil'jaeden talking through a portal thing to Sargeras. Kil'jaeden himself was above Argus. So Sargeras isn't anywhere near Argus. He's nowhere. He's in the middle of some God knows where. Do I miss Hammer of Wrath? Yes, I do. Especially when I'm one of the few people alive in an execute phase. I miss Hammer of Wrath then. Yes, I do. Or if I'm trying to kite something around. Again, on low health. Now, Archimonde's gone. They've said it is gone, and I know it was misleading in Hellfire Citadel because it looks like he didn't die, but we killed him on Mythic in the Twisted Nether, even though you suddenly then get teleported out back onto Draenor. But I'm pretty sure Blizzard have said he's gone. They're not going to make him... You can bring a boss back once without it being too silly. I mean, they've brought enough bosses back again. But a third time... no. I admit I do not know who they can have for the final boss on Argus raid, because it's got to be something big. The best idea I think anyone's come up with is like end of Sunwell Plateau. So on that one, we were fighting against Kil'jaeden, but we were just stuffing him back down in his hole. So maybe there's a Sargeras themed fight where we're cancelling a portal that's about some... But the problem is that Sargeras doesn't even want to go to Argus. He wants to go to Azeroth. So it doesn't necessarily make sense for Sargeras to transport himself to Argus either, because that's not where he wants to go. No, they confirmed that these demons, there's no alternate demons or Eridar or anything like that. You know, I mean, we know there's an alternate Velen, but not the Eridar. So that was Archimonde, the same Archimonde we defeated at Mount Hyjal as well. They did confirm that. Kil'jaeden wants to free his planet. He's buggered his planet. He's nuked it. It's knackered. It's covered in fell shit. I know he's... The thing is, the way Kil'jaeden sounded, like, you can... Because he was having a bit of an argument with Sargeras, you can get into the mindset of maybe he's going to sort of come good, like a Darth Vader type situation. But it didn't seem like that to me. It seemed like he was just upset with Sargeras that the plans kept failing. Not that he was disappointed with the plan or the ends. He was just disappointed with the failure and blaming Sargeras a bit. He wasn't happy that his planet was knackered, no. But at the same time, the fact that he still has... See, the thing is, if he was starting to turn like the other way, he wouldn't still have this vendetta for Valen. He'd start to actually think, do you know what? Valen knew what he was talking about. Whereas that's not the case. He's still regarding Valen as his mortal enemy. So, no, Kil'jaeden still wants to wreak destruction. He's just not happy that he hasn't done a lot of it. You know, he's not happy that the plans have kept failing. Do I have the Violet Proto-Drake? I don't think I do. What is my favourite mount? I have Lux or Rarity. Well, I don't really chase mounts, so the only rare mount I have is the Black Proto-Drake. The one that you got for the achievement with 25-man Nax. But my favourite mount for riding is just my Paladin Charger. For flying, I don't really know. I mostly use my Stone Thingy Drake. What's it called now? Sandstone Drake, I think it's called. But that's because it's a two-seater, so I can carry my alts on it when I'm, like, you know, boosting them through things. Like, lately I've been, you know, handing around my warrior, doing Legion, like, Legion Invasion world quests. So I don't really have anything rare, because I'm not bothered about mounts. The only rare mount I would like to get, but you'd have to eBay it now, is the Magic Rooster. Because I wasn't aware of it at a time when I maybe could have bought cards and potentially got it. The first time I saw it was on some beta, probably WOD. Might have been MOP. Because it gives you like some mounts when you create a character on the beta or the alpha. And I saw the Magic Rooster, I thought, oh, that's marvellous. I want one of them. Would like to see more story about our Holy Dreadlord. I would like an explanation as to why 3 of my champions, one of them's a demon, one of them's a night elf, and one of them's a dead night elf. That's what I would like to know. Yeah, the thing is though, although I did Nax, I left before Ulduar because I was not at all happy with a raid tier that you could defeat within 24 hours of hitting level cap. So even though Ulduar was really good, I didn't know that, so I'd already left the game. So I didn't get any of the mounts. The next mount I got would have been the one for doing Dragon Soul, because I just didn't do the others. And that's ugly. Dragon mounts are always ugly. They haven't made any nice looking dragon mounts in my opinion anyway. No, Nax didn't have... No, well, you got mounts from Nax for doing the achievement meta thing, the glory achievement. Yes, Night Elf Paladins, it may well be opening the... I mean, if they'll do Night Elf Mages, which was really crossing a line in a lot of lore people's view, then you could certainly see them doing Night Elf Paladins, which would actually be less of an abomination. Holy Death Knight. Well, yeah, we're getting another horse. I mean, I wouldn't have minded if it was like a Pegasus type horse, because I remember getting Tyrael's Charger, because I thought, well, that's a nice Paladin type mount. But the wings, because it's like those angel wings from Diablo, it just looks stupid. If you give us a proper Pegasus mount for Paladins, I'd be happy with that, you know, and that would be brilliant. But no, we haven't got that. The new I don't have any Midnight, so I don't think I have a flying mount that really suits my Paladin. Yeah, I mean, most of these sort of, any mount that takes some effort to do it, I don't have. The only mounts I have are, as I say, ones that you would naturally get from being in a raid guild. And even then, some of the tiers I haven't done, like some of the tiers, because you do the achievements on, like, some people will just do it on an off night. Like, I didn't do the one for Blackrock Foundry because I couldn't be arsed with it. So I didn't get that one. And there's another one I haven't got? I don't know. I think there's another tier I didn't do either. The Topless Tower Holy Shock has a chance to grant you Avenging Wrath until cancelled. I don't even know what that is. I'm going to have to read up on some of this new stuff. This sounds baffling. Can the Paladin mount even fly? I think they can all fly. But I think it will just be like... Well, I'll tell you one mount that does look good. Is the Headless Horseman mount. So I was thinking it's probably like that. Just like... I use that on my Hunter, actually. I like it on my Hunter. Oh dear. What's that about? So yeah, so it probably, you know, just, I don't know, like flying reindeer, only it's a horse. Hallow's End Broom. Oh yeah, that actually would be my... If you could have that all year round, that would be brilliant. Hallow's End comes along, I'm always on my broom. Because it's instant cast as well, which is really useful. It's basically instant. You can do it while... I'm pretty sure you can do it while moving. I don't think it's a really fast. I think it is actually instant. Why can't Paladins just fly? I don't think... Well, as my old biology teacher explained, the reason why you couldn't have a humanoid actually fly with wings is because the muscles required would be so huge that you would need a keel, which is like the bird equivalent of a sternum, like many meters in front of you. Yeah, I thought it was instant. So that is the... It's not only looks good, the broom, but the fact that it is instant as well would make it a brilliant mount if you could get it, but you can't. You can only have it for short duration, can't you? Well, I mean, really, it's a matter of physics, but it's my biology teacher that discussed the concept. And we don't have pneumatic bones either, like birds do, to like make them lighter. Yeah, well, we'll just have to let the dust settle on it, I think. I mean, I won't have time to properly look at it anyway until Friday, because even if then, because raid day tomorrow and Thursday for me. And I'll be working a bit late on Thursday anyway. I'll be back in time for raid, but I'll be back from work a lot later than I usually am. So I won't really have time to digest it until the weekend, by which time maybe Blizzard will have said a few things about them as well. Which is actually just as well, because I was actually just thinking earlier on today for this week's WoW Flash, I think I'm scraping the barrel here. There's not been much news this week. So I suppose this changes things. What do I think's behind the other side of Azeroth? Well, in theory, we should be able to tell, shouldn't we? Because isn't there an Azeroth in Halls of Lightning or something? Although I doubt it's updated with all the newer continents, like the Broken Isles. So I don't know. Maybe it's just sea. Maybe this is all the, you know, there's no landmass to the east of the Eastern Kingdoms or the west of Kalimdor. Maybe that's it. Maybe this is all the landmasses. You want to know the release date for Tomb of Sargeras? Well, we don't know that yet. And they won't announce it for, like... They might give... If we're lucky, they'll give 2 weeks' notice. Yes, Azeroth is a Titan. Yeah, well, that's the thing. The maps... I mean, they've already changed them anyway. And they won't go back to the old Wrath places to update them. Yeah. Well, they have to have new zones. So you're going to have new land masses because there's only so many places you could create new zones in Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms. Now there's not many areas that haven't been used much. And now that we can fly over them, there's no real hidden areas. They can't keep driving Dalaran around. It was already silly, I thought, in Wrath, having it go flying off. You'd sort of accepted it there. And once you accept the concept that you can make it fly and go across the world, okay, you can sort of understand why they moved it to the Broken Isles as well. But they can't just keep doing that. Yes, they did say mid to late June that it will be released. So we'll work on the assumption that it will be in between 4 and 6 weeks from now. So we will get cutting edge in my guild, but it'll be a lot closer run thing than it should have been. And be very disappointed, be the most disappointing end to a tier I think I've ever experienced. Because we've just had so much trouble. And with the next tier being over a summer, I don't see recruitment getting any easier. Paladin transmog contest. Yeah, I suppose I should. I really don't deserve to host one because my transmogs are always based on sets. But I suppose maybe that makes me a better person to host it because I won't be entering myself because mine will just be a boring set. No, I've been asked that before. I don't think Tomb of Sargeras will be harder now. I just think it'll be different. I don't think, say, Hellfire Citadel was harder than Blackrock Foundry. It had more bosses, so it took longer. But I don't think it was harder. And I think the same thing is going to be true in this one. Well, I haven't tried the Trial of Style thing actually on the PTR either. Oh, Asmongold, yeah, he does that. Or Ghosty. Ghosty likes it as well, doesn't he? On the Preach web show. I don't think I'm best placed to do one, but maybe I should get people to send theirs in. As I say, at least I'll be impartial because I'm not up for an award myself. Because as I say, I just use sets. All I did. Did they? Anyway, coming up to about 2.5 hours. What I'll probably say is if there's any last few little comments or questions, we'll throw them out. We'll give it about 5 more minutes, I think. And then I should probably get off and we'll have a shower for a start. Need one of those and get stuff ready for the raid tomorrow. Make sure I've got all my consumables made and make sure I've got all my stuff packed for work. I think they're going to still have artifact power in a different form. I don't know what yet. I think that they will feel that artifact power has solved the problems it was intended to solve, and I strongly suspect they will keep it in a different form. I think mythic, yeah, so I think we'll still have it. It's just obviously not going to be for artifacts because we're going to have normal weapons again. They will come up with some other method of having us basically collecting this universal currency that because that's what artifact power is. It's a universal currency that you can get from a lot of content that increases the power of our character, and they will still do that. I think that the weapons are just going to be normal weapons. I don't think they'll even have relics in them, but they could. I mean, who knows? But it was just a shame because I actually quite like the artifact system. I don't like the artifact power system. Or it's just the way it's implemented. I'm not opposed to artifact power, just the way it's implemented. But I quite liked I thought the artifact system was a good thing. And I would have been totally fine with us keeping those artifacts for the foreseeable future. So, well, maybe they should just get monks to use their fists. But no, I don't know how they're going to implement it, but they're going to have to implement it in some form, because from their point of view, there are no real drawbacks to it. They've had to refine the system, but it does what it's intended to do. And its current incarnation, where you don't need much more after the first Legion fall trait. Well, that all depends, you see. I mean, you do get more powerful with more of them. It's just, the thing is, at the moment, you see, it's quite easy. It's like, as soon as you get another artifact knowledge level, all of a sudden it's so much easier to, so even though the artifact levels are exponential, because we're getting the artifact knowledge, that just helps us keep up with it. So it's like not getting any harder for us. At some point, we're going to hit artifact knowledge 50, but we won't have completed the weapon, because we never will. And so at that point, that's when we'll start to feel that we can't make, we'll get to a point where it's just going to take too long to get the next trait point on the Concordance, on the Paragon point. But we're not there yet. Until we've finished our artifact knowledge, we're still effectively building apart, because there's no reason not to get at least 1 point a week. Even if you don't do that much stuff. You can't not. How often do I stock on consumables? The day before every raid, I always just check what I've got. And then, because I make them on my, I have an alt that's got rank 3 with the pots and the flasks that I need. The old war pots and the flask of countless thingies, armies. So I just then make a load. Have I heard about the DP ring? Yes, I have. People have told me about it. Yeah. I've got some choice things to say about it, but I need to digest it. As I said, I need to just go. I'll need to let the dust settle first of all. Let Blizzard say a few things about them, and then maybe properly look at them on Friday. Holy Divine Purpose. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. So. I also need to think about it, because the way I need to think about how it might affect us with the tier 20 set bonuses and with different legendaries as well. There's all sorts of implications for it. So I need to have a think about it. See you later. Yeah, I am closing off in a couple of minutes. So speaking of the artifacts, when the next expansion comes, how do you think leveling through Legion will work? We'll still get the artifact weapons. If you're leveling through Legion, you will just not have them when you get to the end of that and start leveling through the new zone. There'll be some event to do that means you, like, it'll just be a thing where it'll have a maximum level of 110 easy, so you can't equip it when you're 111. So we'll probably be allowed to use it while we're 100, or maybe they'll just disable it altogether when you get to 110. That's also possible, but that's less likely, because the Legion bosses will still drop relics. So yeah, see you later. Yeah, I am, as I say, 1 more minute, and then I am definitely going. 111. Yes, I possibly meant 111. Yes. Will Legion Invasion stay for leveling in the next expansion? You mean Legion Invasions in Broken Isles? The thing is, if it turns out that it's good for it, they'll nerf it. Because with Warlords of Draenor, what people noticed in the alpha and the beta was that, and I suggested this actually before Legion came out, I suggested that people, if they hadn't done lots of world quests, especially in the high level zones, from Spies of Iraq onwards, well, I suppose that means Spies of Iraq and Nagrand, is to partially complete them. In other words, mostly fill up the bar or whatever you were doing, and just leave a couple of mobs that you have to kill. And then when Legion came out and you wanted to level again, just go around and polish them all off, get a load of experience. But they nerfed them. So it worked in the beta and got you a load of experience, and didn't when Legion came out. It wasn't actually worth it in the end. They will just do the same thing. They never want you to do any old content when you've got to do the new levels. And if any of it looks good, they will just nerf the experience you get from it. Simple as that. No, they said they don't see a reason to stop them with the next patch. Because the question was asked, are the Legion invasions still going to carry on through Legion? Because storyline-wise, it won't make sense, because we will have, after 7.2.5, we've beaten the Legion, as in on Azeroth. So when we go to Argus, that's us attacking. We've already defended Azeroth successfully, shut them out. But they said they're going to carry on through Legion. That's not the same thing as what I think the question was about, is it going to be worth it experience-wise to level with the new expansion by doing invasions on the Broken Isle? Which, if it was a good thing to do, they would just nerf it. They might argue they don't need to nerf it because the invasions are only every 6 hours anyway, aren't they? Or something. So you can like do one invasion. That's not going to get you very far. But anyway, I am going to call it there. Thanks for coming all. There will be another one, as I say, next Tuesday. I'll put up, like I usually do, I'll probably try and edit something of this and put it up on YouTube. I don't do the whole... I don't know whether I should. Maybe I should do the whole thing and just let people listen to it as a podcast if they want. Yeah, maybe I'll do that this week and see how it goes. Because in the last couple of weeks, I've just sort of done the first 40 minutes or something. But anyway, thanks for coming, and I will see you later. And as I say, I will at some point be doing some streaming at the weekend for a few hours. May not be playing WoW, but I'll be talking about WoW. But I will advertise when I've decided whether it's either Saturday or Sunday. It'll be an afternoon. I'll post that up there. So yeah, see you later.